Hello and welcome to Rewind Reviews, a podcast about movies from our past. And today, it's Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas to all of you.
Happy Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, not for Chris and I. Not for Chris and I.
No.
Like 18th of December, something like that, I gotta think. Let me have a look.
Nice.
Let me see. It is, according to... 16th. Next week's is the 23rd of December. So this one's the 16th of December.
Woo!
So hello, everyone. Mid-December. Hope you're all ready for Christmas. Have we all bought our presents?
Yeah, man. Hope you bought presents. Hope your tree is up. Hope, if you celebrate Christmas, I hope you're indulging on some Christmas food.
16th's a bit early to be doing Christmas food. I feel like 16th is around the time you do the big Christmas food shop, and then it sits in a sort of cupboard or a pantry for about a week, taunting you before you feel like it's close enough to Christmas for you to eat it. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
I ate Christmas food when watching this movie yesterday. So I'm not the best.
Right. And for listeners who don't know, for us, we record these quite in advance. So it's October for Chris and I. What did you eat?
Yeah. The M&S Christmas party food came out on Friday, and yesterday, which was Saturday, I bought a lot of it. I bought too much of it.
Funniest fucking thing. So wait, what did you have? What's the M&S Christmas menu looking like this year? What did you have?
Oh, it's insane. It's so good. So there's basically, Dan bought some buffet bits for lunch and ended up eating and having so much that we just didn't bother with dinner.
Amazing. So what are we talking? We're talking pigs in blankets, stuffing bowls, that sort of thing.
There were pigs in blankets. Honestly, it's really such a good range this year. There was pigs in blankets.
We are not paid by M&S, by the way. We should be.
No. And if any other retailers release their Christmas food before I watch the next movie, I'll do the same and let you know. But
you're not going to top M&S, are you? It's going to be like Iceland or something.
I mean, yeah, this was. I mean, I think they've really done well this year.
So
there was halloumi.
For American listeners who don't know, M&S is kind of like a slightly more upmarket brand. They're a bit like that's where you go to shop if you're rich. They're all Waitrose. You know what I mean? Iceland, the other store I mentioned, is kind of like where you go to buy food if you're maybe not so well off. It's lower quality food at lower prices.
It's pricey, and like if you're about to ask me how much I spent, I'll give you the same answer I gave Jess, which is don't worry about it.
I know you well enough to know you said jokingly, but don't worry your pretty little head about it. Is definitely how you responded.
No, I didn't say that. I said I literally went, we're about fine, whatever. just a noise. So there was halloumi in blankets.
An amount of money. Don't worry about it.
About an amount of money. There was halloumi in blankets. Mm-hmm. There was vegetable tacos. Mm-hmm. There was hash brown topple tower, which is a genius piece of marketing because it's just hash brown rectangles, but they've just sort of like pitched it as you can build a tower, which obviously no one's gonna fucking do, but like brilliant way of marketing that.
I'm googling that as we speak.
There was vegetable tacos, little vegetable taco things. Mm-hmm. There was a mini festive toasties, which were ham hock, turkey, stuffing, Emmental, cheese. What else was there?
Oh, those hash browns came with a tangy tomato dip. How was that?
I didn't have the dip. Because we got so much that there was just this pile of dips in plastic and didn't really know what dip went with what. So
that's fair.
Just left it. There was a load of stuff. I didn't go too mad. There was a load of stuff that like there was some fried chicken bites. There was Kievs. There was halloumi sticks.
Did you get the battered pigs in blankets? Because that sounds amazing.
No, didn't see those.
I'm on the I'm on the M&S website, and it's their Christmas food section.
Look at the vegetable tacos, man. The vegetable tacos were great.
I feel like you've missed out here, mate. These look amazing. Battered pigs in blankets.
They weren't there. If they were there, I'd have got them. But they just weren't on the. They weren't on the particular shelves. Maybe
that's
they
such a
sold out.
shame. They're in a Yorkshire pudding batter mix. They do look really good. Wow. Okay. All right.
Let me check them out.
Yeah, I've got them on the website, on the M&S website. They look amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, are you sad that you missed out on these?
No, we had. I mean, we had
enough.
There was enough.
Right. So can I make a point quickly here, Chris, before we go on? Before this started, we were making some chit chat for listeners who know. We make the call. We don't record in the same room. We haven't spoken in a little while. We don't live in the same country anymore. A little bit of chit chat, and Chris asks the question: did you do anything particularly Christmassy when you watched the movie? What were your circumstances for watching the movie? And I said, no. And Chris said, yeah, I guess that would have been, in October, if you'd put up a tree, I'd have had questions. I think is that roughly what you said?
No, I said if you'd have found and put up a tree just to watch Elf in South Korea in October, I'd have questions.
Right, yeah, okay. Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
Yeah.
You went out and bought a fucking Christmas meal. Like, I don't think...
Well, yeah, but that's less... That's less effort than what I'm describing. Well, I imagine sourcing a Christmas tree would be tricky right now.
I've got to tell you though, Chris. Whereas the one thing you haven't covered yourself for here is the fact you knew what date Marks and Spencer's released their Christmas menu.
Well, I follow on Instagram a UK newest foods, I think it's called, or something. Okay. So I saw it on there. And I got very excited, and we did. I mean, we did. It has to be said, we did also wear Christmas pajamas.
Oh my god!
I was very keen to sort of try and make it a thing, and Jess was keen to avoid food waste, and those two goals, clashed. Quite frankly, actually, to be fair,
when you asked me if I would done anything Christmassy, is it because you were like, I hope he has, because otherwise I'm going to seem insane? There in my Christmas pajamas eating my Marks and Spencer's Christmas food.
No, I didn't know. I didn't know if I was going to bother bringing it up because I'm not sure how festive it felt, because I just felt really. I hadn't eaten. I'd had the day before trying to get back. There was some. Yeah, I had some. I hadn't eaten for ages, basically. Even the night before, I didn't really have dinner or anything. So I did that thing, when you're so hungry that you eat really fast and then you get really full. So it didn't feel very Christmassy. I just felt full for most of the movie. Then again, I suppose that is quite Christmassy to some degree. Just to clarify on the food waste thing, all of it's in the fridge. There's still a shit. Honestly, you should see. If I sent you a picture of the leftovers, you'd be like, "How much food did you buy?" If this is what's left over. What was purchased. But yeah, so it's I'm looking forward to lunch today.
Yeah, the
leftovers. Cold duck spring rolls.
That's exciting.
It's exciting.
So look, let's talk about Elf. I mean, look, Chris and I are an awkward age to be talking about this movie, because I feel like we were just slightly too old for this movie, in that the people who most hold the movie Elf close to their hearts are about 2-3 years younger than we are, I reckon, and below. Because I have not done the exact math. So this movie comes out in 2003? So I'm 15? How old am I? I'm 15. Let me check. Let me double check the math on that. I'm either 15 or 16. I am right at that age where I'm way too cool in my head for shit like this. And most teenagers think they are, right? It's obviously, we all grow out of that phase. But that's a really unfortunate age for that, in my opinion. So the movie comes out, I watch it, I enjoy it, I laugh at it, Will Ferrell's very funny, and I move on with my life. It's not, for me, the big Christmas classic is for everyone. I like it, it's a good movie, I stand by that it's a great movie. It's only as the years go on, and I see it again and again, that I'm like, and I drop that, I don't know, that weird teenage... Whatever that attitude is when you're a teenager and everything is lame for no reason. You know what I mean? You don't want any, it's cool to like stuff for a small period of your teenage years. It's lame to like stuff. It's cool to not like stuff. I don't know why that is. But anyway, so I went through that phase around the time this movie comes out. Over the years, I see it again and again, fall in love with the movie like anyone else, but I don't have it in my heart the way some people do, because I didn't grow up with it the same way. It was more throwaway for me in the beginning and became something I became very fond of over the years, which I think is almost more of a testament to the movie, because it means that I fell in love with this movie with no nostalgia for it, just by it being brilliant and seeing it, the odd Christmas here and there over the last 10, 20 years, whatever. You saw this movie fairly late? Have I remembered that right?
Yeah, my biggest, not to go on a side tangent, but my biggest memory of this movie, my first exposure to this movie was it was like June, and this doesn't lead to me watching the movie, by the way, but it's just my first exposure to it. It was June. It was a science lesson. We were doing a science exam, and out of nowhere, a kid in our class in the middle of the exam just went, "Santa, I know him," and that was it. And no one sort of, the teacher didn't acknowledge it because we were quite like a restless class. So I think he was just like, "Oh fuck it, I'll just let that go." But it was the weirdest thing. And then after, I was like, "The fuck was that?" And someone was like, "It's a quote from Elf." I was like, "I haven't seen Elf," so that's my earliest Elf memory. And then I actually can't pinpoint when I watched this movie for the first time, but I was definitely older for sure.
So
I assume in the context of someone going, "You've never seen Elf?"
Yeah.
Oh, we're watching Elf.
Yeah,
Something like that.
Which is understandable. We'll talk about how we felt about it on this viewing in a minute. But like in terms of then your initial watching, because we already covered mine. I liked it. I was always openly like, that's a good movie. I always found it funny. I wasn't so up my own arse that I was like pretending I didn't like a movie I liked, which I know people who did do that when they were teenagers. But like, again, it was just not my favorite. So I had a very neutral relationship with Elf for a while. When you first watch it, then what is your first reaction to it? Do you remember how you felt about it?
No, I can't remember how I felt watching the film. My only memory is kind of what we talked about at the end of last week, which is I remember at that point thinking, everyone's viewing this as if it's sort of the latest Christmas classic, and I think a lot of people still view that way. There have been Christmas movies since that people have a lot of personal affection for. Dan and I, with Claus, for example. But it's, in terms of the kind of general pop culture and all of that sort of thing, I think people view this as the last big Christmas movie.
And as someone who loves Klaus, like it's one of my favorite Christmas movies ever made, even I have to acknowledge it doesn't have the cultural footprint of anywhere near like Elf, like nothing even close to.
Yeah, same as with me and Click and Collect. Not really a joke. Yes. I love that TV movie. One year, I'll pick it.
So Chris, there's a TV movie from a few years ago with Stephen Merchant and Ramesh. Is it Ramesh? Who's in it?
It's Ashim Chowdhury.
Which one did Ramesh do? Of those like short Christmassy, I'm sure he did one. Was it one where it was the two neighbours fighting about lights?
What, the one from last year? No, that was Lee Mack and Chris McLeod, or however you say his name. Chris McLeod.
Oh,
I'm not sure he's done one. I mean, he's done things. He's done TV shows that have had Christmas specials, like Rob and Rom, and I think The Reluctant Landlord had a Christmas special. Maybe that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe I'm just thinking of was there a Christmas episode of King Gary? Maybe, and I'm thinking of that.
I think there was a Christmas special of King Gary. Yeah, you could be thinking of that.
Maybe I'm thinking of that.
Oh, and I suspect the plot of that was Gary putting up Christmas lights everyone else didn't like. Probably.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. Anyway, my point is, Chris loves that fucking special, even though most of everyone has forgotten it exists. Some people by accident, some people very much on purpose. But Chris adores it.
Yeah. So it came out in 2000. Click and Collect. It came out in 2018. I think what I liked about it is I just liked, look, it's only an hour, and I think the reason I like it is because I'm like, well, I watched that when it came out, so I could watch it every year and truly watch it every year. Like, do you know what I mean? I haven't seen the Santa Claus every year since it came out because I wasn't old enough when it first came out. I think I just like the idea of, literally since it aired, which means I've watched Click and Collect minimum, because I don't know if I've ever watched it otherwise, but minimum now 18, 19, 20, minimum like what is that? 7, 8 times?
I've got 7 times. This year would make 8.
Yeah. So yeah, but anyway, Elf. So I didn't. I that was my big memory. It was me going. I'm not sure it is a classic. I'm not sure it is this tentpole holiday film that everyone treats it like. It's good. My memory at the time. This is. I remember. I enjoyed it. But I didn't think it was on the pedestal everyone put it on.
Right. So this is more a question of this is more not so much a question of questioning its status as a Christmas classic. Obviously, a lot of people like it. It's more you weren't sure it was worthy of the praise that it received. Is that am I summing that up correctly?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, bizarrely, I went to uni for some reason, and maybe it was a Will Ferrell thing and my school year. But I had a similar thing with Anchorman. I had no idea Anchorman was this big cultural moment until I went to uni, and everyone else and hearing how other people talked about Anchorman, and I was very like, oh shit, like Anchorman's a thing. Like I had no idea. So yeah, weirdly, bizarrely, because obviously they're both Will Ferrell. But yeah, bizarrely similar thing. Like just that sense of, oh, this has passed me by. But it's huge. Okay.
So I think we should go straight into your thoughts having watched it now, because I think that's the more interesting perspective. So you sit down to watch it yesterday with Jess and a mountain of Marks and Spencer's best picky bits.
Yep.
And what's the feeling? Well, how do we feel about it? Do we enjoy it?
As predicted, I think as predicted, I definitely feel I was wrong. I think it is a tentpole Christmas film. I think it is and should be on a pedestal. I think there are minor. There are minor flaws. What's interesting about those minor flaws is there are some minor flaws that in another movie could completely become major flaws, but they don't here, because it's just it's delightful. I think is the word I would use. It's got a lot of hope. It's got a lot of spirit, and it's a fun Christmas movie to put on, and you just kind of. I think it actually came out, whilst, what you were saying in terms of how it came out for us, I think it came out in a perfect time for this movie. I'm not sure if this movie came out now, if it would be what it is. I think there would be a lot of, so what did there'd be a lot of cinema sins, honest trailer cynicism well, what did the orphanage think happened to the baby then, breaking it apart, and I think you could break the film apart that way, and I think there's some character ways you could break the film apart as well. I think they do an awful lot to tell the story of the relationship between Buddy and his dad. And I think, plots like Buddy and I can't remember Zooey Deschanel's character.
It's the easiest name to remember because it's so weird. It's Jovi, which is, I'm sure,
Jovi,
not a name. I need to Google this. I've been meaning to Google this for years. I'm like, do they just make up a name? Jovi. Jovie. Let's see. Oh, yeah, no, it's a real name. That's a real name.
Okay, Buddy and Jovi. Buddy and Jovi have surprisingly few scenes together. And if you're thinking, oh yeah, but no, I remember this scene and this scene and those are the scenes. And I think you go.
I'm just gonna say the Wikipedia page for Jovi brackets a given name mostly talks about Elf and how that popularized the name. So I stand by that's not a name, I guess, or at least it wasn't particularly until
they made it a name.
Until they made it a name.
And I think you could levy the same. With Buddy and the son. The scenes you remember of them bonding are the scenes. Now, let me be very clear. I don't think that's a problem. Like I say, I think in another movie that could be a major flaw. I don't think it's a flaw here. The reason is, I think, because so much of Buddy's story is the positive impact he has on people, when they let him in. Because that's sort of his story with everyone, you don't really, unless you're watching it to review it for a film podcast, you don't really notice, and it doesn't really bother you that some of those relationships don't actually have a lot of screen time. Because it's all so consistent, and at the heart of that consistency is something really warm and fun and playful. And I think the movie gets away with a lot of things because of that. It is one of those classic fish out of water things and world things where you go, well, hold on, how come he knows this but he doesn't know this? From little things to big things like, why are there fucking animated creatures in this world? And again, I think if the film came out now, there would be way more attention drawn to that sort of stuff and the weirdness of it. But because everything, be it the character stories, be it the world, because everything has this delight and this joy and this spirit, you're just along for the ride and you just enjoy it. And I think also the other thing it does really well is it's really hard to do this type of humor well, like this sort of very loud, very deliberately, sometimes farcical, over the top. There's a scene where he runs into a door and falls over in this movie. It's hard to do that comedy well. It's quite a broad type of comedy, and the movie does do it well. And there are very, very funny scenes in it, as well as very heartwarming scenes. At the end, and like I say, there are things. I think Buddy and Jovi is a big one. I would have liked it if maybe Buddy had learned something from Jovi, as opposed to just Jovi seemingly taking something from Buddy and the confidence to, sing in public and all of that sort of stuff. And even I would have liked more of all of that. But again, I don't think it matters, because you go, well, of course Buddy could do that. Like, Buddy's amazing, and he's got the mailroom singing and dancing, because that's just Buddy and how he shares Christmas magic. So yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. I think it is a classic, and I just think it has such delight and heart that it carries things through. And before we get your thoughts, I'll say one other thing, because usually we would say this later on, as a kind of, oh yeah, I want to bring this up as well, but I'm just going to bring it up now to make sure it's said, to say it up top. I think there is a real unsung hero in this movie. And that unsung hero, well, I think there's kind of two. I think Fazion Love, who plays the store manager, is also brilliant. Amazing. But I think and I wish we had more scenes with him. I think actually if you were to say, okay, fine, do you want more Buddy and Jovi scenes, or do you want more scenes with him? I'd be like, I kind of want more scenes with him.
He's so good.
He's so good in this.
Yeah.
I think the absolute unsung hero of this film is Mary Steenburgen as Emily. Yes. Because every film that has ever done, and I believe this season, I think we're in the same season, this season, or very recently in the last season, have reviewed a movie that did this. Most films where there's an unknown son, the plot they do, the plot you are expecting to see, is that the existing current whatever wife has a problem with that son and is uncomfortable and is annoyed. It's, again, we recently reviewed Jungle to Jungle.
First episode of this season.
Yeah. So we've literally reviewed a movie this year where that's the plot, right? So that is what you are expecting to see. Mary Steenburgen, in like 2 lines, has to sell you on the opposite thing to what you have seen in every other movie. She has to go, oh, that's fantastic news. Not really explain why she thinks it's fantastic. Not really go into it anymore. And you even could do it. Oh, that's fantastic news. Maybe it'd be really good for, I think Michael is the name of their son. Maybe it'd be really good for Michael. Maybe it would bring him out of his shell. They don't give her that dialogue. They literally basically give her oh, that's great news. And she has to make you believe that. And she has to make you go, oh, yeah, there's no issues here, even though every other thing I've watched has issues here. Like, and she does. Like, and you do believe it. And I think it's her. And I think, that element of it is another element where the movie just sort of jollily skips through things. And in this case, they get away with it because she's so brilliant. And manages to sell you on that, which really is, like, I think impressive, and I do think she's an unsung hero for that reason. But I think it's indicative of the film in general. If you wanted to be cynical, you could poke holes in this movie, but the movie teaches you to not be cynical. Like, basically the whole plot is, don't be cynical, just get wrapped up in, Buddy and Christmas spirit and joy. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I think it is a tentpole film. And I'm kind of hoping that you don't turn around and go, "Oh no, I don't think it deserves it. I think it's a mess." So, what did you think, Dan?
No, I fucking loved it. I love this movie. It's great.
Yeah, okay,
it still holds up. It's perfect. Look, okay, perfect is a strong word. I don't mean perfect, but it's about as close as it's gonna get, I think, with a movie like this. Look, the summary of my feelings on this movie, right, is it's a deliberately simple but charming story. It's got an extraordinary number of jokes that land. Like, the hit rate on the gags in this movie needs to be studied. It has tons of Christmas spirit. Some of the best performances in a movie of this nature I've ever seen. And that goes for the characters we've already talked about, but even like James Caan, who has to work against the energy Will Ferrell is bringing. Even the down to smaller characters like the little girl from the doctor's office, who is just so charming. Perfect. The third act isn't perfect, slightly messy, but it mostly works, and it does pay off pretty much everything that it's set up, and it has the warm and fuzzies. The ending it wraps up a lot of the stuff you want. But it's so funny, tons of heart, it feels Christmassy. It has a good balance of like Christmas warmth and screwball comedy. I think this is the last Christmas classic, truly. And I think it deserves it. And I think it earned it thoroughly by being so well made. I mean, the reality of this movie is, the reason we say things like, it has flaws, but they're not a problem, is because of the way movies, generally speaking, are reviewed. And reviewing, allow me a long, laborious, overwrought metaphor, please. Movies are sometimes like food. And you can cook a dish, and it has lots of ingredients, and some of it will be down to your preference. What ingredients does it have in it? Do you like those ingredients? The quantities of them will also affect your enjoyment. I like pizza, but I don't love a huge amount of melted cheese. So you might like a pizza more than me just because it has a huge of this thing that you really like on it, but it's too much for me, right? So there's always going to be a certain amount of mileage will vary, right, on anything. But when the ingredients are really good on all the things that matter in a dish, a few things that don't work, like if somebody makes it a really good meal, but they use like, I don't know, cheap salt, you're not going to care. That's not going to make a difference to you, or the quantities were slightly out on a smaller part of it. The main bulk of what's there is good. You're not going to be as bothered by a few things that are slightly off, right? That's just that. It's that simple. And this movie is very much like that, in that all of the things that need to be there, the real meat and potatoes of this movie, to keep that horrible metaphor running, are all, top tier. The script is tight as hell. The movie clips along. The jokes are great. Will Ferrell, maybe his greatest ever performance, which is crazy because it's like his second movie. The choice to sort of be inspired with the Rankin Bass stuff, incredible. The visual effects, obviously some of it is money saving. But to choose to do as much practical stuff as you can, using all the Lord of the Rings tricks for forced perspective, for the elves with humans shots, incredible. Like, there's so much that works that it really doesn't matter that I have a few nitpicks about the third act. They are so insignificant to the absolute sheer quality and joy of the rest of this movie. And it is an equation, ultimately, which is a horrible way to think about art, but if the rest of the movie was just okay, then those issues become more of a problem. Because the movie isn't elevating everything else above it. So I care more about stupid shit because the other parts of the movie aren't working. But because everything is so fucking great, those small issues just don't matter. So yeah, I 100% recommend it. Of course I do. You should see Elf. It's a masterpiece. Like it is, you know, with the exception of my personal, you know, recent favorites aside, Klaus particularly, this is the last Christmas classic for sure. This is, I mean, there's nothing since this that's had that combination of being a great movie and having the cultural impact that this movie has had.
Yeah, and to clarify again, there have been other great Christmas movies.
Mm-hmm.
I would add Scrooged to that list. I fucking loved Scrooged. I thought it was brilliant. But it's not. Was it called Scrooged? Have I got the Will Ferrell? Also Will Ferrell.
Oh, that's a good question because I think of Scrooged as being that Bill Murray one from like '88.
Yeah,
like,
I might have got the wrong name.
I know which one you mean though. The one that was on Apple TV Plus with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. Hold on, Ryan Reynolds.
I'm bringing it up.
Add him.
Spirited.
Yeah. I thought Spirited was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Spirited.
Yeah.
So there have been other movies, but Spirited didn't capture the osmosis and become a renowned classic like Elf did and has. And you know, as we are in agreement, it's not, quite rightly.
It's not cemented itself into culture for even the people who haven't seen it. That's the difference, isn't it? I bet there are plenty of people on this planet who have not seen Elf but can do quotes from it or know jokes from it. You know what I mean? Like that is the sort of, when we talk about cultural osmosis on this podcast, we talk about the idea of something being so ubiquitous among so many and beloved by so many that people who haven't seen it understand what it is through just it being so omnipresent. And that is, you know, Elf is that. Elf is so that. Yeah. Which is crazy because in a weird way, Elf is heavily inspired by those old Rankin Bass, you know, stop motion animations, particularly the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer one, which has elves in it that dress exactly like these elves. And the snowman, he's basically, you know, the snowman that tells him he should go to New York and that, like, he should see his dad. That snowman is basically a character ripped straight out of the Rankin Bass Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah.
So, you know, the movie is so rooted in something that was already culturally significant to many, many people, and it flat out just replaced it. People our age and upwards still think fondly of those old Rudolph specials. But if you ask a kid today, or a kid any generation younger than mine, and I'm 38 now, so like anyone younger than me, they're not going to remember Rankin Bass. They're going to remember Elf. Like, to be so ubiquitous that you replace the thing you were inspired by is fucking incredible. Like, what? So yeah, it's a big deal, and it's fully deserved. So let's break it down. I mean, do we start by just complimenting stuff, or do we want to go into some of the nitpicks? Like, where do you want to start with the negative stuff and then praise the movie a bunch?
Well, and first of all, just to do the admin, obviously we both really recommend this movie.
100%.
And for those that don't remember, Buddy is an elf that was a human baby that snuck into Santa's sack and ended up at the North Pole.
When you say it out loud.
Yeah, no. Was raised by elves, believed himself to be an elf, discovers he's a human, and goes to New York to meet his dad.
His real dad.
Chaos ensues. Mm-hmm. Let's start with, because I did a fair bit of like nitpicking. What do you think? What's your response to my thoughts on, you know, certain character relationships not getting much time, and that kind of thing? What's your response to kind of my critique? Let's start there.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because I do think there's real merit to that, because I think what you've essentially done is you've created a bunch of character arcs that all center on Buddy interacting with them. That's the structure of the movie. Buddy changes everyone's lives. But Buddy is one man, right? He's one character that cannot share a movie's worth of screen time with everyone, right? So they have to really pick and choose, and they have to make the scenes that he has with those characters really fucking matter to sell you on things, because there ain't gonna be lots of scenes with each character, because he has to see them all. You know what? This is the truest Christmas movie ever. This is my experience of Christmas for many years, going back to Manchester where my family are, and trying to get to see everyone in a 2-day period. And give everyone a little bit of my time. In this movie, from a screenwriting perspective, Buddy needs to go give every character some time. And there are going to be some characters that are going to get shortchanged in that, and they just have to make use of the time they do have. And I think they mostly make it work, but you do notice, because some of them are done really well, like I think they do a really good job selling you on Jovi and Buddy, and also Buddy's relationship with his father, that his relationships with his brother and his, I guess, stepmom, Mary Steenburgen's character would be considered, those relationships suffer a little bit as a result, because he only gets so many scenes with those characters. And that's why the writing... This is that thing I talked about earlier about the meat and potatoes being so good, things like that don't matter. Because, as Chris pointed out, there's the scene with Mary Steenburgen's character where she manages to sell you, and it's not just her. I mean, she's amazing in that scene, don't get me wrong, but the script also does a pretty good job of selling you on, no, she just is pleased about this. She thinks this is a really nice thing to have happened. You know, what a wonderful, miraculous thing. This family just got bigger, and I'm into that, and you believe it. And it's because the script is so good at selling you on things in a short period of time. We only really get one big date sequence with Jovi and Buddy to convince us that that's like a relationship I should be invested in. They've had lots of moments where they're sort of like figuring each other out, and she, you know, Zooey Deschanel's doing that brilliant sort of like inquisitive stare she does that she's so good at, that like communicates 1,000 things. She's like looking at him with a slightly furrowed brow, and you just like you could sort of she doesn't know how to take him. You know, they do a bunch of those scenes first, but like then they do like the big date scene, and in that one sequence that's like, I don't know, 2-3 minutes long, and it's jam-packed with fucking brilliant jokes. They also do a ton of character stuff in a really short space of time. So while I do think there is an issue there in that there are characters that get shortchanged because of the structure of the movie, I think the writing, in the end, makes up for it mostly, and it wasn't my biggest issue with the film. I felt it, but I found another issue worse, if that makes sense. And it's kind of connected, because they could have done more with this and more to resolve this problem if they hadn't done the other thing that I'm going to talk about.
Well, let's go there, Dan. What was your big kind of nitpick or negative or whatever?
I think this goes beyond a nitpick, unfortunately. I'd love to put on my shoes and go to nitpick corner. This is like kind of like the closest thing I have to a criticism. I don't love the third act. I think we manufacture a very movie situation that doesn't need to be there. Santa's stuck and he needs Christmas spirit, and there's ring wraiths chasing him for some reason. And like, it's so involved, and mostly it comes out of nowhere. There's things they could have done to make it feel a bit more included. Like when Santa's giving Buddy, and this is Nadia's suggestion, you know, when Santa's giving Buddy tips about New York, he could have said, stay out of Central Park. The Rangers there hate anyone from the North Pole. You know, they could have done that maybe. But like, it just feels a little bit left field. Out of nowhere, we're doing like a character movie where it's like a guy trying to find peace with his family and his you know, and these new people he's met, and trying to like find his place in their lives. And suddenly it's like, we got to save Santa. Like, it's like, wait, the movie wasn't about this. And I do feel like it comes a little out of nowhere. I don't 100% it's earned. I don't think the movie needs it either. That's the more frustrating part. I feel like this is the movie not having the confidence to just do what it was doing. Like, the movie feels like it needs to have a big climax, right? Like a big action set piece. And they do their best to tie it into what's happening. Obviously, everyone gets to learn that Buddy really is an elf and not just a mentally ill person, which is good. And, you know, everyone gets to show Christmas spirit, and they do weave it. The reason they get away with it, and the reason I don't come in saying, and it's the same thing we were talking about earlier, the reason I don't come in and say, this fucked the whole movie for me I'm not recommending it because this was really bad, is because it's what they've done. Even though I don't agree with this choice, they wrote it really well. They did a really good job weaving this thing that didn't need to be in the end of the movie into the character stuff. We use it as an excuse to show. Is it Walter? Is that his name? The father? I should have brought the character names up. I usually do. I didn't remember. The Buddy's dad, to show him singing and that being the thing that finally lifts the spirit meter, whatever it's called, to overdrive and sends the sleigh right into the air is wonderful. That's a great bit of character work, and it shows you how far that character has come. There's tons of really funny moments in that. One of my favorite jokes from the entire movie is in that sequence. The whole when the brother is got the book and he's on the camera and he says she wants a Tiffany engagement ring and for her boyfriend to stop dragging his feet and commit already.
Yeah, that's great. It also does have, I would argue, potentially the worst moment in the movie, though, which is the bizarre dude hitting on the newsreader as she's delivering the news.
Yeah,
which is really weird.
Yeah, that's one of the few. That's one of those rare moments when a joke doesn't land, actually, because that legit, like, that's weird. Like, I don't know why that's there.
Yeah, no, me neither. And I didn't know if, like, maybe it was when he then got to her in the book, I was like, oh, okay, maybe she's single. And he's like, she just wants to meet someone and Santa's already done that. And that, but nope. No. I think I agree with you. In particular, I really agree with you about the horses chasing them. That feels particularly contrived. I think they do. The other reason they get away with it is because a hell of a lot of it's set up. His dad, Walter, being on the naughty list and the sort of shock at that at the beginning of the movie. It's very clearly explained at the beginning of the movie. The sleigh used to run on Christmas spirit, but they've had to introduce like a canon. I'm not saying you didn't say this, by the way, or anything like that.
Is me agreeing with you. I'm not. I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, you're right.
This is, and I think they get that's one of the reasons, like you say, that it really works because it's so embedded in and logical. For me, the bit that it was like. And did feel really contrived because it comes out of nowhere is they don't see a lot of action, so whatever the line is like about the horses, but it's basically the equivalent of like they don't get a lot of action, so
they're the Central Park Rangers. They don't they have a very quiet job, but they've been criticized for their extreme tactics during such an event back in the 80s or whatever, and it's like I get it. We want tension. We want the movie to have some sort of big build-up, some payoff. But I honestly, I would have been perfectly happy with Santa's lost in the woods and he needs Christmas spirit. I didn't need a big chase. It's enough to worry that he's not going to be able to take off and deliver the presents on Christmas Eve. No, is that not? He doesn't need to literally be being chased by Lord of the Rings ring wraiths. I mean, that's
I think you could have easily embedded some sort of timer or countdown thing. A dashboard, a dash on the a reader on the sleigh dashboard. You could have easily embedded this needs to remain green because the minute this goes red, there are some children going without presents at Christmas. And then that's the timer. That's the ticking clock of the final act. Mm-hmm. There are kids all over the world. Some of them aren't going to get presents because the sleigh can't move.
Yeah, anything like that would have been fine, and that would have been more than enough, and it wouldn't have felt quite as contrived. I don't know. It is what it is.
You referenced. Not to fire questions at you, but you referenced, Buddy and Jovi really working for you. Do you agree with me that it would have been great if we could have seen, like I say, Jovi teaching Buddy something? I think that just would have maybe made them feel even more cemented.
Well, I think the reason you can't do that, unfortunately, is because Buddy's arc was about being comfortable with his own identity as an elf and a human. And we'll talk about this a little bit when we get to the trivia, but this movie was written by a gentleman called David Berenbaum, and he was raised Jewish, but his family always celebrated Christmas, which is unusual for a Jewish family. Well, it depends on the family, I guess, but not a lot of Jewish families celebrate Christmas, and particularly when he was a kid, that was even probably more true. And it's directed by Jon Favreau, who had, I believe, his mother was Jewish and his father was, I want to say Catholic. And so the movie's sort of this really interesting, in a really interesting position, right? Because Buddy's arc is about accepting that he's human, but he's raised elf. So he is culturally elf, but he is practically speaking human, like he is born human. And the arc for him is realizing that he can do elf stuff too, and that he is a wonderful, weird, unique thing that puts him right in the middle. And he's the reason he can save the day is because he brought Christmas spirit to the humans, as well as elf know-how to help prepare the sleigh. And admittedly, the thing gets knocked off, after he rebuilds it, but that's not really the point. The point of the movie is, he says, Santa, I can't rebuild this thing. I'm a terrible elf. And he's like, I believe in you, you can. And he discovers he can. And if you weave Jovi into that lesson, I think that gets quite muddled. Because Jovi doesn't know he's an elf for most of the movie. So I think you're in a weird position with weaving her into Buddy's arc, which is why they did it the way they did it, I think. But I will say, before I want to come back to the religious element of this film, but I will say as well, Zooey Deschanel is phenomenal in this movie, right? Because her character, especially when she first meets Buddy, has legitimate reasons to be annoyed, maybe even scared of this strange man who is 12 years her senior, following her into the shower. There's a lot of very alarming things happening in this script. And she, as an actress, not as a character, but as an actress, has to sell me on the idea that that character sees his childlike innocence and is not threatened by him and is instead charmed by him. When on paper, you would find it hard to believe this person is not calling the police, right? That's just the truth. That's just if you took it out of this movie and you described these events like you were telling a story about a friend who happened to you. If I said to you, Chris, I have a friend, she worked at a department store, and this other guy who worked with her, who was dressed as an elf all the time, would act like he was an elf, in and out of character all the time. He followed her into the bathroom to sing Christmas songs at her while she was naked. You'd be like, she called the police, right? Is she alive? Did she survive this ordeal? So Zooey Deschanel has one of the hardest jobs in this movie, which is to convince me that Jovi sees him in a way others don't, which is that she understands he is sincere. His innocence is real. Right? And that can only be done through performance. The character doesn't get a moment to stop, look at the camera and go, just so you know, dear viewers, I'm charmed by this. She has to show that in her acting. And I mean, fuck me, does she do it? Because I think that whole plot collapses if she can't convince me of that. Genuinely. Every scene she has with him in Gimbals, before it becomes more clear they're actually going to spend time together and we sort of move into a more openly romantic relationship, every scene she has with him in the first act or so of this movie is just a masterclass of acting. And I have no idea if this is something she gets praised for regularly or not, but I'm convinced without it the movie falls apart. And I hope she knows how good of a job she did, because it's this is a movie where Will Ferrell is doing one of his most iconic performances. It's easy to get lost in the shuffle, but I hope she gets recognition for this regularly, because it's so good, so good, and so essential to this film. So yeah, I didn't feel it quite as strongly as you that she could have been tied to that plot, but only because I was aware of what the Buddy's arc was and knew that it would only be a very confused movie, and it would actually maybe hurt her relationship with him more than help it to weave that in. Does that make sense? I rambled a lot there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's also it's not just because I agree with everything you've just said. I just think I would have liked to have seen enhancements in the sense of not just tying her into the arc at the end, but just giving her a bit more agency as a character. Like her main storyline and development, like I say, is all about the journey she goes on, in the sense of him helping her, and it's represented by singing in public, basically. But I just, I just think she's so good in this movie, and something, even if it was just in the montage, and it's kind of there. Like, for example, one of my favourite moments between the two characters is when she sees how excited he gets about the Christmas tree in the shop window, and so she takes him to the Christmas tree in Central Park.
No, it's the Rockefeller Center.
Central Park, whatever it is, Rockefeller Center. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go ice skating, and then he kisses her on the cheek, and she says, "You missed," and kisses him on the lips. Like, it's great. And I think just more stuff like that, basically. I think I wish the story of them was less about the impact he makes on her, and I just I think I love the moment I've just described, because that's about the impact she's made on him, and I it being two-way, I think I would have really liked, but
that is valid. I mean, the movie is about. The whole movie is about his impact on others, for sure.
Which is what I said earlier. Which is why I said you get away with it, because everything is about that. Mm-hmm. So you as an audience member get wrapped up in that, which I think is really clever.
Yeah. I've got to say as well, as someone who did spend November in New York and got to do the ice skating under the tree at the Rockefeller Center. This movie does have, like, considering they didn't shoot for very long in New York, for real, they only got a few weeks of New York production, they do such a good job capturing, like, what I think of as New York Christmas. Like, that's an experience I've had, and like I have very fond memories of, and seeing it represented in this movie, in my opinion, so accurately. That was very much. They definitely knew what they were doing with this, because New York Christmas is a real vibe, like a really specific tone that you've got to hit. Let's go a tiny bit. Go back to the thing I was talking about earlier about the religious element. I don't want to talk about this too much, but what I really think is very interesting about this movie, and I don't know how else to phrase this, but this is a weirdly. How do I phrase this? Is it secular is the word I mean? It's a Christmas movie without much of the religious stuff. And that's why I think one of the reasons this might resonate as a current Christmas classic. I think Christmas has changed. And the reason earlier I said, particularly for him, the writer, David Brenbaum's, it would have been more unusual for a Jewish family to have celebrated Christmas in some way when he was a kid than now, is every year it feels like Christmas gets a little less and less specific, and a little less and less tied to its faith, and a little more its own thing, a time to be with family, share gifts, share food. There are people who are completely atheist or are of a different faith altogether that celebrate Christmas now. So Elf might also be the first modern Christmas movie to really feel, or it might be the most, certainly the biggest movie, to feel like it doesn't have religious undertones. It is a movie for people who like Christmas but aren't religious in a weird way. There's no scenes of Buddy going to church. Like Home Alone, he goes to a church. There's carol singers. Like, there's religious iconography in that movie. Now, admittedly, it's minor and it doesn't impact the plot at all. But it's just, I find it really interesting that these two creatives that came together to bring this movie to fruition, the writer and the director, both had this very 1 foot in, 1 foot out version of Christmas growing up, because of the faiths they were brought up in their life circumstances. And then they produced this movie that sort of represents that version of Christmas. And that's the version of Christmas I most resonate with, the non-religious kind. So I wonder if, in a world where people are seeing Christmas less and less as a religious holiday, does a movie like Elf stand out because it removes the religious elements? Is that why this feels so authentic to me as a person who was not particularly brought up in a major religious way, When I lived in Ireland with when my grandparents were close by, you better bet your ass we went to church on Christmas morning, which was the worst when you're a kid, by the way. You know a great way to make a kid hate your religion? Give them a bunch of toys and then say, you don't get to play with those right now. We have to go for an hour to watch a boring man tell a boring story. And people sing hymns and shit. Like, that is a great way to turn a kid away from your faith. Let me just put that out there. But as somebody who had that for a bit when I was younger, but then when I got a little older, like, Christmases with my immediate family, deeply unreligious. Not connected to faith in any way, shape, or form. Neither of my parents particularly believers. So this resonates with me strongly, and I find it really interesting that this is the last big movie that resonated with so many people. And maybe some of it is just, hey, Will Ferrell's real funny, and this script is really funny and charming, and that's it. And maybe I'm looking into it too deeply, but I wonder if that's a part of it. I don't know. Did you? I feel like I'm putting you on the spot because I know you don't often like talking about like the religious iconography of Christmas. We've had conversations about this before on podcasts. But how did you feel about that watching this, or did that occur to you? Is that something you just didn't think about?
No, it's something that I didn't notice watching the movie. I think it's you. There are parallels if you wanted to, though. You could. The movie is about finding faith. Do you know what I mean? Metaphorically, maybe there are themes you could draw between the two. It's just about faith and acknowledgement of Santa. And so maybe a religious person might watch it and go, which I'm not necessarily particularly religious, by the way, if anyone's wondering that. What Dan's referring to is, I think if memory serves, there was a Christmas episode of Steven Universe, and it just became a very big, like, is this religious, is it not discussion.
The discussion was, I didn't think it was necessarily in keeping with Steven Universe to put such heavy tones of a specific religion into one episode. They did a whole manger thing with, like, you know, a Jesus metaphor, and like I didn't care for that personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a personal taste thing, which I think I said at the time. I acknowledged that was a very personal thing and that other people wouldn't feel the same way. But I remember it did spark a lot of conversation in the comments section. I recall that.
Yeah, and there was also a whole Dan and I over the years sort of always touched upon religion but never dug that deep. And then Dan was like, let's do an off-topic, nothing but static, and let's do religion. And I'm like, okay. We spent like an hour and a half talking about it, and then we never released it. And there was a vibe, I'm sure it wasn't, but there was a vibe of, was this just Dan's way of making me have that conversation?
So, no, we actually recorded 2 of those. So the idea was we were going to do, for the Patreons, a podcast that had different topics. And we were going to start choosing the topics ourselves. And then we were going to sort of hand off to the patrons to select things for us to talk about. It was called like Pointless Noises or something like that. The premise of it was just like drivel. Like, we were just going to talk about random non-TV related things, and sometimes that might mean a slightly deeper conversation, sometimes that might mean so. We recorded 2 and never released them, and they are long gone, unfortunately. They're on a hard drive somewhere maybe, but I would never be able to dig them out, I don't think. But one was on,
and also they were also on topics that views might have changed. I wouldn't want to put them out just on it wouldn't reflect necessarily where we were 8 years later anyway.
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah, 100%. I have no idea what I said in that podcast. But we did one on books as well.
Did we?
Yeah.
I have no memory of that.
Well, do you remember the reason we didn't put that one out? So what happened?
No.
We got the Audible sponsorship. And then suddenly the books one felt dirty because it felt like we were on our Patreon, where people are paying for access, because we talked a lot about books, and we talked about books that I like, some of which I'd gotten through Audible and done as an audiobook, or I'd read, really enjoyed, but also they had a really good audiobook, like The Martian. I remember we talked about The Martian, and I remember talking about The Martian has a really great audiobook, but we, a week after we recorded that, maybe 2, we got a sponsorship deal with Audible. And we felt dirty putting it out because now it just sounded like a fucking ad read. So, and that was episode 1, and religion was episode 2, and neither of them ever saw the light of day.
Right. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad, like, because the book won for that reason, and the religion one for me is kind of like politics. I don't necessarily feel informed enough always to have those discussions, and I'm on the sort of big topics. I'm very cautious, as regular listeners of all our podcasts would sort of have picked up on. I'm very cautious if I don't feel I have enough to say, or I don't feel I have enough knowledge to talk about subjects. Apart from when it comes to theorizing about film and TV, I guess. But I don't. I try. But I'm very careful with my words.
Film and TV discussion, though, is a thing you studied and therefore are knowledgeable on.
Hopefully, maybe to some degree at least. But back to the question, I think it's a really interesting point, and I think that is possibly the case. I think it's also interesting though, and it's funny because the next choice is sort of in a similar position to Home Alone, where the film isn't necessarily about religion, but there are definitely scenes that take place in environments, and actually, I don't want to spoil the movie. Oh no, okay, maybe it is much closer tied to religion than Home Alone.
Yeah.
I just remember.
I think,
a big cornerstone of the movie. But,
that's what's super interesting, though, is like every other Christmas movie I can think of, even the ones that on the surface, like if I'd said to someone, Home Alone, does it cover religion? They'd be like, no, of course it fucking doesn't. Like, what a stupid thing. But then you watch the movie and there's sequences in a church. They talk about what church is represented to people. Sanctuary. That old man's daughter is in that choir. Like, they're singing hymns. Like look, it's not what the movie is about, but is there a bunch of religion in the movie? Yeah, there's tons of it, because it's a religious holiday. That's to be expected. There's faith and religion in It's a Wonderful Life, a huge amount. It's about angels. Like, it's about, like, so, very few Christmas movies are truly free of the religious element of it. That's why this stands out to me. That's why this really does stand out to me, because you could definitely dig a theme about finding faith in this, but I think about that. To me, that is finding faith in fellow man, in each other. That's what I take away as the message of this movie. Yeah. Because the thing they believe in the end, all right, technically it's Santa, but it's each other. Buddy believes in Jovi's ability to, and his brother and his family's ability to whip that crowd up. He sends them to go do that. He believes in them. Santa believes in him. They're all believing in each other. That's what it comes down to. And, for everyone to help Buddy in his situation, they have to believe in him and they have to believe in Santa. But they're believing in those people, not those ideas. So I don't know. For me, it's about believing in humanity and believing in each other rather than. So it's to me, that's almost an anti-religion message, actually.
I wonder if, and for those screaming it, I'll say it, Die Hard, arguably.
Yes.
Doesn't necessarily. But there is another movie, arguably. Now, I don't think as much as Elf, but there is a real, at least in the UK, I don't know if it's anywhere else, but there is another film that actually came out after Elf that there has been a sort of growing movement every year of people talking about and making a deliberate effort to watch. And that is The Holiday. Is talked about more. It feels like it's talked about more and more each year. And similar thing, that doesn't necessarily, to my memory, feel very religious. So maybe there is something in that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, because I just think that's the reflective of the times. The times have changed. The numbers of people who put themselves down on censuses as being practicing in a faith are falling. That's just fact. Less people are strongly tied and believe in religions today than 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. That number is constantly falling. And in a world where that's true, kind of makes sense we're making media that reflects that version of Christmas. To me, that just, look, maybe I'm way off. Who knows? But I thought that was very interesting. And it is worth noting, by the way, that there is one tiny moment of religious iconography in this movie, which is when Buddy is sat in the doctor's waiting room. Over his shoulder to his left, there is a Christmas tree. Over the shoulder to his right, there is a menorah, which is related to a Jewish holiday from around the same time of year. I will say, I don't see that so much as the movie making a religious statement as more. Well, no, I mean, it is making a religious statement, I guess. But I guess for me, that's more about the director and writer sort of symbolizing their position, which is 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? Which I just think is interesting, and it's just a background visual. It's just very briefly in the movie, and also the menorah isn't related to an actual Christmas holiday; it's related to a Jewish holiday.
Do you think, just because I've just realised in our sort of Christmas classics discussion, like I don't really want to do this. Let's not spend much time on it, but I think we have to again acknowledge that there might be people screaming this. It came out the same year. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's also an argument for Love Actually?
Some people will say so. I think there's potentially an argument for it, but the problem just comes down to quality. Like, is that a Christmas movie that people love and go to every year? Absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe even on the same scale as Elf. Is it worthy of that? No. It's a disaster. That movie is a complete piece of shit, top to bottom. It's a fucking mess. It's a mess. There are like 6 or 7 good scenes that work on their own individually, and the rest of the movie is a fucking shit show. Like, it's so bad. I rewatched it for the first time in a good long time, like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, like just before we went to Australia.
What circumstance?
Fucking hate it.
Because I know your feelings about that movie. What circumstance? In a world where I might choose it for the lulz, what circumstance? Because I'm surprised to hear you say you've rewatched it during a period we were doing this podcast. Because it would strike me that you would go, fucking hell, I'm not rewatching it now, and then fucking Chris might pick it in a year's time for the podcast. So, what circumstance led to you rewatching it a few years ago?
Unfortunately, predictable answer. Nadia wanted to. Nadia likes the movie, and of course, like.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like the most important person in my entire life wanted to watch the movie. We're watching the movie.
Yeah, but I think, look, if I'm ranking people in my life by who do you want to watch a movie you really like that they don't like at all with, I'm probably putting you bottom of that list. So surely I don't see how that's enjoyable.
No, you know what? I was really good. Mouth shut, watch the movie.
You wouldn't do that with me.
No, I wouldn't. No, absolutely wouldn't. Well, the thing is, though, the reason with you isn't anything personal beyond like you're the person I talk about movies with. Like that would be just reflexive. That wouldn't be like that wouldn't be me choosing you as like I'm going to annoy the fuck out of Chris watching this movie. That would be I've had lots of thoughts about this. I'll tell Chris. Oh, he's right here. That's a reflex.
I've watched movies like, and for context, I don't love Love Actually. I'm just thinking of like I remember watching Blockers with you, and it's not like you hated that movie, and it's not like I loved that movie, but I definitely enjoyed it more than you. That was still a little heartbreaking. So like, I just can't imagine.
Sorry, I didn't catch the name of the movie. Which movie? Sorry.
As Blockers, the one where like John Cena and
I enjoyed Blockers. Blockers was fine. It was
that's
fun.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, I laughed. Yeah. I laughed many times. It's a solid movie. Is it a masterpiece? No, but it's good. I'd watch that. I'd watch that again. I wouldn't mind watching that. If Nadia said to me today, I want to watch Blockers, I'd be like, yeah, sure, crack it out. Let's do it.
Well, what you should say is if you wanna tick that box, watch We're the Millers instead.
I love We're the Millers.
I think is genuinely a brilliant movie.
Yeah,
anyway, we've moved on from Elf.
Yes, we have.
I
agree with you. On
so
Millers,
I think that's. I love that movie. I agree. So one thing admittedly we've gone on some tangents, but we are 1 hour and 11 minutes into this podcast, and we have not really talked about Will Ferrell, who is putting on, and fucking I know from just like watching the film and doing some light googling, I know the original casting intention, and we'll talk about that in Triv, but. Like I said earlier, for me, the most impressive thing about Will Ferrell in this movie, and it's something that's impressive in general about the movie, is I think this is a really hard type of comedy to get right. I think this sort of really loud, almost slapstick performance. That even sounds like a negative. Slapstick is a skill. Like good slapstick slapstick requires real skill and talent, and bad slapstick looks awful, looks lazy, looks appalling. Like if you get this type of comedy wrong, the film is a disaster. And so much of that is sitting on Will. So much of that is on his shoulders. And he just does every element of it right. Like he's able to be a fish out of water in both the North Pole and the real world. Yes. He never comes across as obnoxious. He's not. You could give these exact scenes, these exact lines, this exact script to another actor, and you'd be sat here going, "Fucking hell, that character's annoying." Like that character's really. I can't stomach that movie because Buddy is just so irritating. It's too much. But you don't, and I think that we've called people the unsung hero. We've praised Zooey Deschanel. I think I can't remember every member of this cast is great. The guy who plays his dad.
Well, we'll talk about James Caan as well, because I think if we're going to talk about Will Ferrell, we need to talk about the yin to his yang. We need to talk about James Caan as well. But I thoroughly agree with everything you're saying. So we've spent a lot of time praising Zooey Deschanel, Mary Steenburgen. I think I've even already shouted out Bob Newhart, who plays Papa Elf. We talked about the Gimbals manager played by Faisal Love. Like we haven't praised Will Ferrell yet.
We haven't talked about him enough, but it's so frustrating because there's not really much more to say other than I just wish he was in more of the movie.
He's so funny.
His delivery.
Work is your favorite. Work is your favorite now is my favorite fucking line in the whole movie.
I just love. Here's my number. Call me. And what was the code? I can't remember what the code was. Like,
is it Santa's got a brand new bag or something like that?
Yeah. But
Christmas is my favorite. No, work is your favorite. Work is your favorite. It's so good. Every line to finish that thought very quickly, just to give him some more love. Like with Buddy, those lines in another actor's hands, fine or passable at best, right? He takes jokes that are just like maybe throwaway in another actor's hands and makes them like some of my favorite lines in the whole movie. Everything that guy is doing, from his facial expressions to his tone of voice, is just chef's kiss. I love that guy. He's great in this movie. It's masterful, brilliant.
Yeah, he's brilliant. But the reality is, And like I say, you can say similar sentences about Zoe Khan. You can say, about James Caan. You can say similar sentences about Zooey Deschanel. But the reality is, no one's got as much work to do as Will Ferrell. No one's got so much of the movie sitting on their shoulders. So he really is the reason, a huge reason the movie works, if not the reason, because I truly believe in the hands of a lesser actor, this movie's potentially a disaster. But the performance is loud when it needs to be loud, subtle when it needs to be subtle, but also the right levels of both of those things that they don't feel like contradictions when he's one or the other. And that's so hard to do, and I think he's brilliant.
Yeah, and I think for me the other thing is I talked about how Zooey Deschanel has to sell you on her being not scared of him and seeing the innocence in him. Well, Will Ferrell's job is to make us, the audience, believe in Buddy's innocence. We can't be wondering if he's secretly a piece of shit, just deliberately being an arsehole for fun. We have to believe he doesn't know any better. So we have to basically believe this is a child in a man's body, to some effect, right? And if you can't make that work, like with the other, with what we said about Zooey Deschanel, the whole movie falls apart. The whole movie falls apart without it. More so with Farrell than with Deschanel. It would be devastating to the movie if you don't have someone as talented as Deschanel doing what she's doing. But you put the movie in the bin if you're losing what Will Farrell is bringing. Like, don't even bother. Like, truthfully, like it's incredible what he's doing here. There's a reason this performance will continue to be one of the things he is most recognized for. No matter how much other great work he does. And look, we've all seen Holmes and Watson, that masterpiece of cinema. But like, legitimately, like, you know, he, no matter what he does, no matter how much good work he does forevermore, this will be the thing he's remembered for. Which is, I'm sure for him, sometimes a little upsetting because it's one of his earliest movies. I think it's his second ever film that came out after Old School. But I think it's just... it is the ultimate compliment because it is so... We've reviewed so many movies on this podcast, and we always say, "Oh, that performance was great. That performance was great." Rarely do we say, "You take that actor out, the whole movie doesn't work." It comes up. There have been plenty of occasions where we've said that, but in the grand scheme of this podcast, it's not that common. Like, if there are more often than not, we'll just say a performance was good. The idea that a performance could be the linchpin, the thing that makes or breaks a movie, is it's rare. It doesn't come up a lot, and this is one of those moments, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, totally, totally. I just have to, and I hate to, after you've said that, I hate to do this even more. Just so you know, I've just looked into stuff. There's some stuff Dan and I clearly weren't aware of. If we were, we would have done our usual before praising Favion Love, who plays the manager. We would have done our usual. There's some stuff about them as a person, apparently.
Okay. Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, so for anyone wondering, when you look at someone's Wikipedia page, they have headings. I will simply say that this. Literally, can I just make a point here that I also pulled up his Wikipedia because I was looking, what else has he been in? Because I feel like I should have seen this guy in more things. But there is a heading under the heading of career that is controversy, lawsuits, and arrests. And
look, we do on Rewind Reviews, we do a lot of movies from the 80s, 90s. We never go into this stuff. We're not trivializing it, but what we tend to just do is go.
We are aware.
There's some stuff about them as a person. I didn't know we had to say that about this person until that moment. There's some stuff about them as a person, so we weren't aware of that. But we, that doesn't.
I don't look. It's still not going to change. I wasn't lying. He's amazing in this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether he's a piece of shit or not, he's still amazing in this movie. So yeah, oh man, that is rough. All right, well, we'll move on from that.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Let's talk a little bit very quickly then, because I do think if we're going to praise Will Ferrell, we need to praise James Caan. James Caan has the unenviable position of having to.
Let's check his Wikipedia. I'm sure there's nothing in James Caan's past. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. What I will say is what I say what I will say. No, just because you never know, do you? What I'm going to say is the thing we've said in the past to give us backtrackability is James Caan, great bloke, unless some crook shit comes out, and then we never liked him. Never liked that guy.
I mean, Again, I'm not making light of anything. I'm really not. But it's funny what you've just said about Wikipedia headings. Because on James Caan's Wikipedia, there is a heading entitled "Alleged Links to Organised Crime." We're not laughing at that. I'm not sure, but just the irony of Dan specifically
the situation is funny.
Just Dan specifically saying sometimes there's Wikipedia headings, and me just as a joke scrolling through his Wikipedia and then seeing that heading.
Look, I don't know. Whatever. I'm not going to get into it. I mean, James Caan's dead. I'm not speaking ill of a dead man. But like, look.
No, and it says alleged. I don't know. Again, very much like religion and politics, Dan. An issue I don't know enough to talk on.
Right, absolutely.
I don't know enough about to talk on.
Yeah. And look, there's also a heading under alleged links to organised crime, which is political views, which doesn't do him any favors either. All right, well, let's not worry about that. Look, in this movie, James Caan has a lot to do in terms of balancing, because you've got a really risky thing that's happening here, because Will Ferrell, and he fully knows he's done this, so this is going to sound like an insult, but I don't mean it. This is a very big performance. This is a big performance. It's bigger than what anyone else is doing in the movie by choice. He's made a choice to go massive, right, on what he's doing. To counter that, you have to have James Caan bringing it back down. That's so important in all of these scenes. And because he has to be the counter. He has to be the counterweight, or it does not function. And we'll get to it when we talk about Triv. So there's this word that James Caan did just maybe not like Will Ferrell very much, and just put some of his real enmity into the role. He's talked since about appreciating what Farrell did more in hindsight, and in the moment feeling like maybe he was going too big, which is understandable. James Caan's he's a legitimate like actor, right? He done a lot of he's Sonny Corleone. Do you know what I mean? Like this is The Godfather. Like this is a very prestigious actor who's done a lot of really big movies in his career. So like obviously from his perspective, maybe Will Ferrell came across a bit much, which I get. But yeah, either way, whether it came about through just genuine frustration and enmity with Will Ferrell or like no, it works in this movie. It's so good. It's a really perfect back and forth that those two develop. So yeah, James Caan, excellent in this movie. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, big old thumbs up to what he's doing in this film. But yeah, dear Lord. Anyone else want to fucking turn out to a bit of piece of shit secretly? Like, god damn.
I have just clicked on the Daniel Tayer's name as he plays Michael, like expecting to see like involvement in the heist robbery of 2017 and
murdered 1,000 puppies.
But no murdering puppies as far as Wikipedia tells me.
I'll take
for him.
Call that a victory.
He also great in this movie. I genuinely think all the cast is brilliant. Yeah, and I think. I'm fascinated to hear the alternative casting, and I presume it's quite Triv heavy this week, Dan. So any other notes about the movie in general?
You know what? No, because what happens is with this one, there is a bit of a story to the movie's existence, but like it can all be summed up quite well. I like there's not a lot of like extraneous detail that like you need to understand the story, so I was able to sum it up in a I'd say succinct way. This is one of the there's a fair bit of Triv, but it's not Wizard of Oz. We're not going to be sat here for an hour and a half doing Triv. So let's have a quick look then. I do love that Buddy's positivity clearly comes back to how the elves are. Like that's learned behavior, because from a script writing perspective, that's just very clever. He calls himself a cotton-headed ninny muggins, and they're like, "No, you're great. You changed the batteries. We need that." They're very positive and nice to him. It would have been very easy to have the elves be mean to him, I think, or frustrated with him. I love all the practical effects. We talked about that a little bit, but all the force perspective stuff is amazing. I mean, we'll talk about some more of that in Triv, so I don't need to go into it too much now, but I just want to point out that I really love that. And I also loved all the use of the stop motion, really good. I loved the sequence of him arriving in New York in general. That whole this movie has a couple of really good montages actually, just in general. Like him arriving in New York is great. The sequence when he's in, so not the journey to New York, but the little sequence once he arrives, where he approaches the guy who he thinks looks like Santa, or he goes into the coffee shop because they have the world's best coffee. Like, all of that stuff's really good.
But the callback to that when he takes Jovi to the shop and she's like, tastes like a crappy cup of coffee, and he's like, no, it's the world's best coffee. It's a great joke.
It's a great joke. It is a great joke. Christmas in New York is a vibe, and like the Gimbals thing being Macy's, which I visited Christmas like specifically, was also a really thing. I can tell a quick story about that now. Macy's Christmas and Macy's Santa is a real thing, obviously, and it's a military operation. There are, sorry to spoil this for anyone listening, there are like 20 Santas working at any one time. And what they do is they hide them via your journey to the Santa. You go through this like maze, you're led through it by an elf who takes you to a specific Santa that is now definitely free. But you can see all of the branching paths,
cool.
which
That's
makes
very
it
cool.
feel like you're in this like magical place where Santa could be anywhere. But actually it's that there are like, double-digit Santas currently working. It's amazing.
Hold on, did you go and see Santa then?
I did. I saw Santa. Yeah, we did. Nadia really wanted to do it. It was one of the most awkward moments of my entire life. The photo, if I can find
I was
it,
going to say.
it's maybe
Yeah,
my.
You think there's not follow-up questions to this?
Okay. We go in, we sit down sort of next to Santa, we do a photo. It's very kind of funny. Nadia was just really wanting to do the Macy's Santa. It's like a famous thing to go do specifically the Macy's.
I think you've answered the question, Dan, but I'm going to ask the question that most people are screaming in their heads right now, just to make sure, just to cover it, even though you've sort of answered it in your phrasing there. Did either of you sit on Santa's lap?
No.
Right.
But no one does, I don't think, anymore. I think that's considered.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think they do that anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that went away for reasons that probably are too unpleasant to think about. So I don't think that's a thing anymore. You sort of sit next to him on like a bench that sort of looks like it's close to being on his lap without actually being on his lap. So you sit down with Santa. The guy was great. He understood why we were there. Weird tourists finding it funny. They take this picture, right? And I didn't realize how uncomfortable, because this was very much I'm doing this for Nadia. She really wants this experience. I feel uncomfortable taking up a slot at a thing that's for children as an adult without a child. I was not comfortable doing it. But, I love her. So we're doing it, right? No problem. But I didn't realize how much my face showed it until the photo, which we were not going to buy. Because they take the photo and then they charge you another like $20 on the exit, or $30 or something to get the photo printed. And Nadia was like, "We will not be doing that. We did the experience. We got to it's a real journey, because the queues they know are going to be long, so they make it like you're queuing through like a magical winter wonderland with like trains going round and lights, and like it's a whole thing, right? And the experience of just going to Santa was great. Like the stuff they've set up is remarkable. Right, you're almost touring this thing more than you're doing anything where you actually see Santa. But the picture is incredible. I look like I want the ground to open up and swallow all of the earth. That's what I look like. I want a meteor to hit the earth and end my suffering. That's what I look like in that photo. It is fucking incredible. And I will see if I can find that photo. And if I can locate it, I will put it in the video version of this podcast. So if you head to youtube.com/nothingbutstaticuk, and you give us a little like if you like as well, and subscribe while you're there. But please do check it out, because it is, you have to see it to believe it.
So what so he asks you what you want for Christmas. Yeah. He does that. He commits.
Yeah.
He commits.
Of course, the man's a professional.
Nice.
Man's a professional. So yeah, we do all that, and then I move on with my life because I cannot wait to get out of there. But it's a really cool experience. So having done that, like seeing this version of it, where it's like one Santa in the middle of a wide room, I was a bit like, meh. This movie has not quite captured what the real event is like, in my opinion. Because, like I said,
maybe that's a budget thing in part. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that in Trev, actually. But so yeah, the sequence of him arriving in New York and doing all that stuff is great. I don't love the gum thing. Nadia and I both averted our eyes with the gum sequence. That was gross. I didn't care for that. Made me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. That's fine. I get it. Funny joke. If you're not grossed out by it, I'm sure you had a good time. But no, thank you. I just want to give credit to one of my favorite lines in the movie as well, which is, "Am I sick? Yes, but that's not what we're here for." When he takes him to the doctors.
Yeah, Jon Favreau doing a great, well, obviously brilliantly directing this movie. Although I believe there were potentially tensions there, which presumably
we will talk about that.
But doing a great Doctor. Although obviously, and again, this is the problem. I think the world is too cynical for this movie if it came out now, because now it would be, they got the DNA test back quite quickly, didn't they? Because I think that process takes weeks and it seemingly took minutes here. But that was a good scene.
The mailroom sequence we haven't talked about. That's hilarious. He goes into this miserable mailroom and then they're all having a big dance. I think that's fun. I like the way he turns that around. It's great. I do love the small things with showing him little moments of him connecting with other people. So it's like the little girl in the waiting room, or Amy Sedaris' character. Who is the secretary? You just made my day. All that stuff is really nice. That's delightful. The only person who he seems to interact with and he doesn't make their life better is Peter Dinklage's character, Miles Davis. Peter Dinklage is very good in this movie. And look, I think if you know enough about Peter Dinklage, you find his choice of taking on this role makes a lot of sense. Peter Dinklage has been very outspoken in the past, for right or wrong, about people of his stature getting roles where they're playing, elves, goblins, characters that are mythical creatures, characters in dreams, things like that. He's been a big proponent of not playing those sort of roles, and playing a character who is called an elf and gets to react like this to it will have been, I'm sure, a very good time for him. I'm sure he would have enjoyed that very much. So yeah, that's he puts a lot of effort into his reaction. It's a very convincing anger, is what I will say.
Very much so. Yeah, and but he's also really great. Like the cocky, I've got ideas. Like, don't worry, there's there's loads of good starts in here. Like he plays the role. Even take out the fight with Will Ferrell thing, and some of the stuff the Buddy is saying is cringy and like. Oh,
but that's
God.
they found such a good level though, because one of the things he says, it's such a great piece of writing, because does Santa know you left the North Pole? It's such a direct insult if you don't believe that elves exist, but makes perfect sense from Buddy's perspective.
It's actually a really good example of how brilliant Will Ferrell's acting is, because the sincerity in which he's asking, it's almost not particularly offensive, because you just completely know that it's innocent from Buddy's point of view. Yes. These are innocent questions. My favorite piece of acting in that scene that for me represents that is when he's like, when he's going, I've got houses in LA. Peter Dinklage's character's going, I've got houses in LA, and da-da-da. And Buddy's like, yeah, like genuinely, like clearly, like impressed, and clearly like, oh, cool, like so sincere. And then call me elf one more time. He's an angry elf. Like there's such sincerity. Yeah. To the performance. Absolutely. It's brilliant.
And it's another moment, microcosm of the wider thing of like, a different actor does that scene, doesn't work quite as well, because you're questioning his motives. You're questioning, is he just deliberately being rude or a bit of a dick here because he can see he's pushing this guy's buttons. Very quickly before we move on to the triv, my last sort of thing I want to talk about is the ending itself, the very ending, because we've not really talked about it. So we have the reveal that Walter is Walter. We haven't talked about Walter's arc actually. Walter's arc concludes with him choosing to throw his job away for his son. Now you could argue that's not particularly earned, other than that he just chooses to do the right thing in the end, and I would agree with that. It's a bit thin, but like ultimately, a lot of what's in this movie is a bit thin because, again, we're focused on Buddy. Walter's arc is secondary to that, of course it is. But the idea at the end of the movie when he opens up his own business instead, and he's hired a new hotshot writer, and it's Buddy, and Buddy's gotten to tell his story as a kid's book, and then you see him reading it to children, and then you have the reveal that he still visits the North Pole, but now he's with Jovi and they have a kid. Like, there's a lot hits you in the last, like, 30 seconds of this movie. How did you feel about that stuff, out of curiosity? Because some of it, I could see somebody feeling some of it was unearned, I guess is what I'm getting at.
No, I'd like to. I thought it was all earned because what more do you? You know, Walter apologizes. You see that. I think it's really lovely and just such great writing. And I think poorer writing wouldn't have made this decision. Walter's turn happening with Michael in the room. And the way he gives Michael fist bumps as they walk out, and also scolds him for being like, for whatever he says, like he's like no because he's sworn or whatever. I thought that was brilliant, and the combination of that and him apologizing to Buddy was enough for me to feel that was wrapped up. You know, if anything, I think the thing we needed more of was not the conclusion, but is what prompts exactly Walter to sort of have enough and throw the towel in. What, you know, we don't really have that moment where Buddy has said something and something happens which makes him really ponder it, or, you know, we see scenes of him kind of staring and clearly thinking about Buddy and what he's done, but I almost would have wanted more. I'd want more justification for the turn than I would the sort of conclusion. They're happy. They're a family. They're open their presents together. Jovi's singing in public again at the piano. That's a really nice touch. And they're together, you know, in that scene as well. They're all having fun. And then the touch of the narrative of the movie, it being wrapped into it and making sense because it's literally a story. I thought we got enough of that stuff, actually, more than enough. Because that was paying off things and acknowledging things that the movie had already done the work for. Whereas I think, like I say, the reason for Walter's turning, I don't know if they did as much work for that. So no, ending wise, that didn't bother me at all.
No, I would agree with that. Yeah, he just sort of decides to not be a piece of shit anymore.
Yeah, like literally. Like I suppose to be fair, Michael calls him out, like, and calls him selfish and stuff, and we don't, you know, that clearly stings him. But yeah, there's nothing.
I guess
I think they could have done more
it's the
with
moment
that.
when actually, you know what I've remembered that I forgot. It's the moment when the other guy is like, "Will someone get this like kid out of here?" And he's like, "Don't talk to my kid like that." And that's really interesting. I've just realized that's the moment he changes. It's the moment that someone else is shitty to his kid, and he's like, "No, now you've gone too far." Anyway,
it is madness. Like, there's no way that meeting needs to be Christmas Eve. Like, they're not gonna get, like, even if there's a good idea. Like, I mean, also though, to be fair, someone in his position, just choosing to miss out 2 pages, and also I don't really understand how it having, you know, worked with printing and stuff like that. I don't see how it's saving money. Like, or maybe the pages aren't ready. I can't remember the exact reason those 2 pages are missing. But
so the 2 pages are missing because they were missing from like the digital file that was sent for the printers, and he wasn't paying enough attention. He just sort of signed it, even though they were blank. And then the reason it was going to cost them a bunch of money is they would have to reprint the entire book. You can't just like mail everyone who bought the book 2 pages to sort of glue in themselves. You'd have to literally reprint the book, which would cost a huge amount of money.
Right, I missed that. I thought he deliberately chosen to like miss out those pages.
No, so the choice he makes is they tell him those pages are missing. Do you want to reprint and fix it? And he's like, no, that would be too expensive. The kids won't care. They won't notice there's 2 pages missing because kids are dumb. That's his logic.
Yeah. That's, you know, it's quite a leap then, isn't it, at the end, I suppose, when he's starting his own company. You know, maybe has Buddy changed him that much? He's you know, he's not only got a better attitude, he's more competent and not likely to just sign 2 blank pages thinking they're there.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
But yeah,
it's a good point.
But no, the end didn't bother me at all. Did it bother you?
No, it didn't bother me too much. No, because like I said, Buddy's arc is Oh, for the thing with his dad, or the ending, you mean?
Just the ending.
Yeah.
There's so much being wrapped up in montage.
No, I'm happy with that. I think it's like most of it gives me the warm and fuzzies, and it's all done real quick, which is like, let's not sit in it. That's fine. It's perfect. Like, yeah, no, I'm on board with it. I'm on board with it. Cool. Should we do the triv then?
Let's triv it up.
Give you some elf trivia. Okay, so we already talked about this being David Barenbaum's first script. Very big inspiration from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which is the Rankin Bass. Was it Arthur Rankin, Jules Bass? Animated special that aired in like the 60s that re-aired and re-aired and re-aired. And people of my age tend to know it through parodies of it. The Simpsons did a parody of it. That 70s Show did a parody of it. Community did a parody of it. I mostly know it through their takes on it rather than actually having seen the original Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But like, it's a big part of Barenbaum's love of Christmas. Again, sort of despite having been raised Jewish. His father also died when he was like 8. So this story is kind of about reconnecting with one's father, even though you didn't have him around for most of your life. It feels like there might be something in that of his own feelings, which is, I think, one of the reasons maybe some of this stuff rings so true. So he wrote the script originally in like 1993. 10 years before it ultimately comes out, and he originally got it optioned because it's a good script, I guess, by it, but it got optioned really quickly, which is unusual for a first-time writer writing something on spec. I should clarify, sorry. Writing something on spec means you've written it on your own account. No one's paid you to write it, so you've in your own time written a script with the hope of being able to sell it later and make your money then. So he put his time and effort into writing the script, then shops it around, doesn't get too much interest, but ultimately gets it optioned for 1 year by an independent company called Motion Picture Corporation of America, the MPCA. Now, when I say optioned for a year, what that basically means is they had the right to put a film into production with that script for a year. If they don't get the film into production within that year, the rights revert back to David Barenbaum. And immediately he becomes concerned about the movie they want to make. And he talked about this on the Movies That Made Us episode, which I meant to watch before we did this and ended up not watching. I like that show. I mean, we've had incidents in the past where I've done like copious research, then watched that and been like, hey, they got a bunch of stuff wrong. That's actually legitimately happened multiple times on this podcast. My most annoying one remained the Ghostbusters one, where they basically, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to relitigate it, but I have mixed feelings on some of the information in that show sometimes. But anyway, I didn't get a chance to watch it, but he did do an interview on that, and he said that basically the MPCA version of the film would have been a completely different movie tonally. They wanted Chris Farley as the lead, and he didn't like that. He felt that was wrong for this film. So he decided to just basically let the option run out. He just left them with the script, knowing they wouldn't pull it together in time, and it lapsed. So even though the big part of the story is Chris Farley was going to play this character, never really was, unless this company put a movie into production in like 12 months with Chris Farley, who was a very popular actor in 1993, didn't seem like this was ever a realistic thing. And this is what I mean about this trivia for the movie being kind of interesting, because it's like you hear that and you go, wow, there's probably a huge story there. Not really. Like, they wanted to do it. He didn't want that. And he just sort of sat on it and let them sit on it. And then it just lapsed, which is not maybe the most exciting way for that story to go. In terms of my feelings on it, I mean, obviously, Chris Farley is a comical genius and would have, there are many, many roles that he was potentially destined to do, were it not for his untimely demise. Extremely talented, deeply wrong for this role. That is a different movie, right?
I think it changes the tone of the movie, I think, completely. And I don't think that would have been, that certainly wouldn't have been the movie we got.
Yeah. Because this movie does have slapstick in it, and we talked about this movie, Slapstick, earlier. But I don't really think of this movie as being a slapstick film. I think a lot of the film's comedy comes from the dialogue. personally. And while there is slapstick in it, it's not the core of what makes this movie funny. And I feel like you're doing a Chris Farley version of this movie. You're dialing up the slapstick. You're losing a lot of the verbal jokes. And I think then the movie's laugh hit rate tumbles a bit. Maybe more enjoyed by children, but maybe less enjoyed by adults. Because that's the other thing that keeps any family movie thriving for generations is it works for adults too, which means adults don't mind putting it on at Christmas for their children.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. We got the billing baby over there. Chris, are you likely to show this movie to the billing baby in, 10 years
I suppose
time?
technically they were awake yesterday. We did say this is your first Christmas movie.
That's true.
But yeah, I would have no objection. It's the reason Bluey's so popular, because parents genuinely can watch it as well. It's not a bad watch. And yeah, I think I absolutely would show this movie to them for sure.
Sure. Yeah. No, I agree. I think that is one of the reasons a movie like this lasts for as long as it does. So the script gets to a guy called John Berg, who is an executive at New Line Cinema, and he convinces the studio to buy the script. There is a lot. Look, there are two different producers who claim to have had the idea of casting Will Ferrell. I am going to...
I mean, great minds can think alike. That's possible, I suppose.
Yeah. And they both worked at New Line, because obviously New Line reads the script. What I love... Okay, can I tell you what I love most about this movie? Is that, it just feels like New Line were like, we don't care about this script. We don't want this first-time writer, making a movie with our cinema, our thing, really. And also Berg, the producer that brought the script to them. He was a very junior producer, had yet to produce a film. They had no faith in it, right? And yet they still greenlit it with a $30 million budget. What a different time it was. Imagine being that sour on something and still being willing to commit $30 million to it, right?
It's like you say, it's a different industry now.
Yeah, there's no way this movie gets made now. And then the other thing is, as if they hadn't already taken enough risks, the producers, John Berg, and this other guy whose name I have actually lost somehow in the trivia, but I think he did part of the interviews on the movies that made us. They liked Will Ferrell for the role, and look, they were right. But at the time, he was not a big star. He hadn't released a single movie yet. He was mostly just known from Saturday Night Live. He was filming a movie, or about to film a movie, called Old School. But there was absolutely zero cachet behind Will Ferrell, right? So they already didn't care about this movie. They didn't like that it was a first-time writer. They didn't like that it was a first-time producer. They didn't really have much faith in a movie being led by Will Ferrell. And yet they still commit $30 million to it and go, yeah, go on, try, I guess. So... I will say, potentially though, I will say the benefit of Will Ferrell is he will not have cost the kind of money. We often tell stories on this podcast about studios being like, put Tom Cruise in it. You know what I mean? They want who's the biggest name they can think of for that moment. Leonardo DiCaprio plays Elf. We usually have stories like that. None here, because ultimately they just didn't care. Which is another thing that makes this movie kind of unusual.
Unusual, but also probably the reason it's so good. It's as good as it is. There's limited studio interference because they didn't give a shit.
Yeah. So, Berenbaum, the writer, and John Berg, they all get together. They're happy with Will Ferrell. They approach Will Ferrell. That happens, and presumably, one of the benefits being he was not expensive, right? So that is a win. He's not costing you a lot of money, even if you use a bit of a risk in terms of your box office returns. So it doesn't seem like anyone else was seriously considered, and the thing that they seemed to all agree on was Farrell brought the innocence to Buddy they really wanted. They were absolutely thrilled with what he was able to bring to it, and they saw in him the things we praised him for today. So credit where credit's due, regardless of whose idea it was. No one else was seriously considered, and that's the correct answer. He was signed on before they had a director locked in. So
I thought I heard a rumor about Jim Carrey.
No, not that I can see. I didn't read anything about that.
Oh, I saw a thing of like Jim Carrey was originally meant to be in Elf when I googled it last night. Oh, okay.
Let's have a look.
So it looks like before it got delayed, basically, Carrey was being considered at that point. Then,
right? So Carrey was being considered
before he let it
lapse.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. Chris Farley and Jim Carrey were candidates to play Buddy. Right. I don't know how serious that was. Everything I read was focused very much on Chris Farley. So that's much earlier. Yeah. So yeah, once that lapses and that whole thing goes away, the movie becomes what it is now very quickly. Once they bring it to New Line Cinema. So they talked to Ron Howard, they talked to Spielberg, they turned down offers to direct. Terry Zwigoff was offered a chance to direct the movie, but he turned it down, instead choosing to direct Bad Santa. Can I just say, by the way, that it feels like I should just record a sentence of me saying Steven Spielberg turned down this role to direct this movie, and then just put it in every podcast we do, because it feels like every single time we review a movie, Spielberg was at one point in line to direct it.
Well, I imagine he gets offered a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's Steven Spielberg, of course he does. So, an interesting way around we come to arriving at Jon Favreau as director for this movie. So, Will Ferrell is making Old School in January of 2022. This movie is not shooting until like November, December of 2022, and the producers visit the set to see Will Ferrell on the set of his first big movie, which makes perfect sense. And Vince Vaughn is obviously in Old School with Will Ferrell, and he's the one who says to the producers when they're all hanging out, Jon Favreau is your guy. So Favreau had co-starred with Vince Vaughn in Swingers and directed Vince Vaughn in a movie called Made just like a year or two earlier, like 2001. So Vince Vaughn's on the Jon Favreau train and is like, you should get Favreau in. Now, again, like with so much of this movie, there's no pushback on this whatsoever, and Favreau is just director now.
Because Vince Vaughn said so.
Because Vince Vaughn said so. So now Jon Favreau signs on. And that is literally how it feels like it happens from the information I have. So New Line Cinema did get involved on Jovi. They wanted Katie Holmes. But they pushed for Zooey Deschanel because she proved she could sing. And at this point, Jon Favreau is now in the room and has a sway on that. And he said that actually a lot of the movie's music was added once those ideas around music in the movie were because of Zooey Deschanel's singing voice. He also really appreciated how dry she was, and he really pushed for her. And he liked the way she bounced off Will Ferrell in the auditions. So they pushed back, and New Line went, yeah, all right, as New Line have done at every other point in this discussion. Now, contrary to popular belief, Zooey Deschanel's hair is not naturally blonde. She dyed it for a different project that never got released, but happened to have blonde hair when she did the audition. So the screen test for this movie, she's blonde, and the studio liked her as a blonde and were like, can she stay blonde? And everyone went, yeah, all right.
Of course they did. Because that's their entire approach to the making of the movie.
So she said, yeah, we'll stay blonde. That's fine. And then she just did the movie blonde. Interesting. She doesn't have her signature bangs in this movie, and she does look a bit different. They frame her face very, very specifically, Zooey Deschanel. And when she doesn't have them, she does look really different. She's like 23 in this movie. It's crazy. She's so young. Now, James Caan is 63 when this film is released. This character proved tricky to cast because they had assumed they needed someone around 50-55 to account for a father who could have had a 30-year-old and a 12-year-old son. But in the end, they didn't worry too much about it. The other names they considered, and this does blow my mind slightly, we nearly got a version of this movie where Bill Murray plays the father. There was also a talk of Dan Aykroyd or Gary Shandling doing it. I think Gary Shandling had worked with Jon Favreau previously, or Jon Favreau had worked on the Gary Shandling show, so that was why that was considered, but it never quite happened. So yeah, in the end, we land on. They offered Khan the role, not expecting him to take it, but he did, and they were like, "Score! We got James Caan." And they weren't. They decided not to be too worried about the age thing. Some of the other potential castings: Steve Buscemi was considered for Santa Claus. Didn't work out for whatever reason, but that would have been fun. But we haven't called him out. But I will say Ed Asner as Santa, delightful. Well, he got a real twinkle in his eye, but also seems a bit grumpy. Perfect. I love it. Ed Asner is a great Santa. In the early versions of the script, Miles Finch wasn't someone with any kind of sort of dwarfism, so they were considering lots of other actors, including Brendan Fraser. They didn't. They obviously that's not what they landed on, but that was someone they thought about. So yeah, those are some of the other castings. Shall we get into production? Okay, so some of the script was changed when Favreau comes on board for various reasons, but an early draft of the script had the elves being meaner to Buddy, making fun of him for being different, and Favreau felt it made more sense if they were good-spirited. It's a good change. I agree with Favreau on that one. He says it explains better how Buddy is doing all these good things in New York. He grew up in a world where everybody is sweet, even though he's screwing everything up. So yeah, that's very good. Apparently Favreau added the Throne of Lies line as a direct reference to Lord of the Rings, which is fun. The idea of Buddy putting maple syrup on his spaghetti came quite late as well. That was another Favreau thing because he was thinking of unhealthy things that elves might eat. So he was like, oh, they'd eat sugar, things sweet. And then that's where that came from. He also added... no, this is something different. So yeah, so the scene when Buddy eats different candies and pastries with spaghetti, that had to be shot twice because the first time they did it, Will Ferrell vomited.
Well, that's. I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it? There was, I ate quite a lot of M&S Christmas food with this, but I wouldn't have wanted to take on spaghetti and maple syrup.
No, neither would I. Apparently, he suffered from headaches and insomnia throughout the production, Will Ferrell, because he ate so much sugary food. I laugh, but that is dreadful. I feel very bad for him. Yeah. So, several minor traffic accidents occurred when Will Ferrell walked through the Lincoln Tunnel in his costume. People were very surprised and distracted from their driving because there was a man in an elf outfit crawling along the tunnel. Now, that's slightly out of place, that piece of trivia, because I have a whole section, not a whole section, but a small section later on about the New York shooting. I'm just going to scoot down and do that now while we're here. So they shot in Manhattan for, where is it? Just 3 weeks. Buddy walking along Buddy walking along the New York streets, shoulder to shoulder with the crowd, mirrors a famous long lens shot from the movie Tootsie. When director Jon Favreau told camera operator Michael Green he wanted the Tootsie shot, he then asked him if he was familiar with it. Green responded, "Yes, I was the focus puller on that shot." So he asked,
and then he pulled out a microphone he happened to have handy, and he slammed it on the ground.
So yeah, the final days of production ended up coming down to just Favreau, Farrell, and one cameraman driving around the city, filming small bits, doing some guerrilla filmmaking, which Favreau was known for doing, and is one of the reasons this movie comes under budget ultimately, or not under budget, but on budget ultimately. They would jump out and ask pedestrians if they'd be willing to be extras for quick cash. Farrell sort of ran around acting like Buddy. This is where they got shots like him leaping on the lines at the traffic, the crossing. And my favorite one is the guy Buddy mistakes for Santa is a real man who did not know what was happening, legitimately. Will Ferrell really did just run up to him, act like he was Santa, and then when he got a grumpy reaction, backed away. And then the producers, in this case, Favreau and the cameraman, had to stop that guy and get his permission to be in the movie. And paid him,
That's
presumably.
amazing. And fair play to that guy for agreeing to that and not fucking it up.
Yeah, well, my assumption is he's probably like a nice, happy guy, but he was just caught out. Like a giant 6-foot odd man in green tights ran at him, and he's like grumpy and weird, and he was going somewhere. He's made with someone else, and then a few minutes later, he's like, "That was really weird," and they're like, "Oh no, it was for a movie. Do you mind doing it?" He's like, "Oh yeah, that's kind of funny actually, yeah," and he signed the thing. That's my assumption, is that he just kind of, yeah, wasn't bothered by that at all. It just he, in the moment he was caught out and was a bit grumpy about it. Okay, so the cotton balls that Buddy eats in the doctor's office, they were actually cotton candy that had not been dyed. So that's fun. Oh, the Gimbals manager role.
Potentially an opportunity to try and find a sugar-free version of that. But like the rest of the movie, they went, no, we'll just use the full sugar version.
Yeah. So Wanda Sykes was going to play the Gimbals manager before Faison Love took the role. But he still insisted on wearing her name tag, the one that was made for her, because it was a last-minute replacement. So if you look in the movie, his character's name tag says Wanda.
That's good.
I do enjoy that. So the crew was adamant to deliver on the homage to the Rankin and Bass Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Many references to that special in here. You were talking earlier about, the animals and stuff and the various sort of claymation characters, all ripped almost directly from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the Rankin Bass one from '64. The problem is they assumed that they'd already got the copyright to do that because, Buddy's entire costume, if you look up an elf from that's Buddy's costume. That's what he's wearing. So there's an element of they just went ahead and assumed they could use all sorts of Rankin Bass stuff visually because there was so much of it already in there. But it turned out, as the production went on, the legal department from New Line Cinema started to take a bit of interest in the movie, which was uncharacteristic for any element of New Line to be taking interest in this movie. They started showing up on set. They were sort of talking about concerns about this stuff and making changes to the movie. Sorry, I took your coughing as an opportunity to drink some water, which is a terrible idea. It led to silence.
Yes, that's very bizarre. Like, Chris is coughing. I know what I'll do. I'll do something silent to highlight the cough and not. That's the weirdest decision ever.
You know what it is? I can trace it back. There is a logic to it. It's a subconscious thing that happened. Is usually I drink water when you are talking. You were making noise, so I drank water before I realized, oh yeah, that's not talking.
No,
it was reflexive.
Apologies. I've coughed a few times. Apologies if that's distracting for listeners in any way.
Fuck them. No, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah. Once again, Merry Christmas.
Basically, this was all a big, massive oversight, and they were very concerned. And they were talking about Will Ferrell changing to a blue costume instead of green, which would either mean reshooting a huge amount of the movie or digitally changing it. Now, there are reports that this all got cleared up because Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was never properly copyrighted due to errors. There have been reports that there were incorrect Roman numerals in the copyright notice, which meant that it wasn't under proper copyright. There's reports that documents weren't refiled. I investigated this and I found a legal website that wrote a small piece about whether that could be true. And they said, while it is true, there was a change to the laws on copyright, and certain papers that were supposed to be filed when it was being reapplied for as a result of that were not filed correctly. They do not believe that it means you could just use it freely. A clerical error or a document not filed correctly doesn't completely dissolve the copyright on a thing, was the argument on this legal page. And it never ended up coming up. I assume they simply paid whoever owns those Rankin Bass. I mean, these days those Rankin Bass Christmas specials are owned by Warner Brothers. So I don't know if it was Warner Brothers in 2003, but now it's Warner Brothers Discovery that owns those Rankin Bass things. But my assumption is, ultimately, they were able to, because they weren't like, it's not like they were buying the rights to release a remake of those movies. There's just some visual nods and elements and stuff. My assumption is they ended up discovering that they could get the rights to do that cheaply and just paid.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That sounds logical given those pieces of the story.
Yeah, and they do talk about this in the movies that made us, and I wanted to at least watch that part before this, just in case there's any more information than I had. But like, I really did want to make sure that I wasn't misled by that show. The research I did, there are multiple websites that are like how the Rankin and Bass thing nearly shut down Elf, and how the Rankin and Bass thing ended because there was paperwork misfiled or whatever. And I think there is a realistic chance that if whoever owned those specials at the time, if they wanted to, they could have forced this movie to make some major changes, which could have had a massive impact on it. But we're talking visual stuff and stuff from the early portion of the movie. So Buddy's costume does become blue. We don't have the snowman, who is clearly a direct reference to that. But I think the movie still ends up existing, even in a world where they don't get the rights to that stuff. It's different, but I don't think it's so significantly different it changes the movie, because you can't copyright the more generic ideas of elves and Christmas and that sort of stuff. So I think that's why ultimately whoever owned it at the time was just like, yeah, just give us a little bit of money, because we wouldn't really have massive case here. You would change the movie rather than pay us if we went crazy. So.
Yeah, plus the general vibe around this movie just seems to be it just feels like everyone's attitude was, this isn't gonna be a hit.
100%. So the production didn't have a big budget, as we talked about, $30 million. It didn't have a particularly well thought out schedule, from what I can see. I mean, as described, we described them guerrilla filmmaking in New York on one of the last days of shooting, where just a cameraman and the director ran out with Will Ferrell in costume to run around New York and film stuff. So yeah, this production was, I would say, somewhat scattershot. Certainly compared to the usual Hollywood production, which are obviously very tightly organized and stuff. But Favreau was dead set on getting in-camera effects and live props into the movie. He didn't want to use CGI. He thought the movie would be dated by heavy CGI use. And he thought it also would clash with the sort of Rankin Bass aesthetic, the inspiration that they were going for. So they ended up, as we talked about earlier, using a lot of like forced perspective tricks, which are what New Line Cinema, their production company, had already done with Lord of the Rings. So they were ready for that. They knew how to do it. Like, I'm assuming that New Line Cinema has production crew guys that worked maybe even on both. So, the scene where Buddy's riding a bicycle with Papa Elf, Farrell is in the foreground, Newhart, who plays Papa Elf, is in the background, making him look much smaller. The Papa's hands that are on Buddy's shoulders are actually a young actor standing out of sight behind Farrell's back. They also used a similar trick for when Buddy sits on Papa's lap. So you get the image in camera and you don't have to spend money after the fact on CGI. Looks great.
And personally, I thought it looked brilliant. I did not notice the seams of that in any way, shape, or form.
No.
And I wasn't looking out for it either. But yeah, I thought they did that fantastic.
I agree 100%. It really pays off. And Favreau was smart here, because he's right. CGI would have dated it. CGI would have dated the movie more so, I think. There are a few drawbacks, of course, to this, which means that, the shoots took longer. You get it in camera, but it's a lot longer to set up and arrange. Way more complicated to shoot. Angles have to be perfect to make it look good. So they had to start setting up a second unit that would come in at night to set the shots up before production the next day, just to keep the film on schedule. The North Pole set itself was so deep and wide that it had to be built inside of an ice hockey rink, because no soundstage had the size to do that. Because obviously, to get those forced perspective shots, the actors have to be quite far away from each other, and you need a lot of space to do that. and they had to build it in an unused hockey rink rather than a sound studio.
And was Rockefeller shot in Rockefeller?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't come up in the New York section, did it?
Yeah.
Apologies if you've said that.
No, sorry, it didn't. Yeah, no. So they did 2 or 3 weeks in New York. Some of it was properly organized, like normal shooting. Like, you know, they booked, they got the rights, whatever you have to do. You know, they filled out paperwork with New York City, you know, to get the areas that they needed to film, things like that. So yes, they filmed at the Rockefeller for sure. They filmed the outside of Macy's to double as gimbals. So yeah, they did a bunch of stuff like that. I'm not sure if there's anything more about that coming up, but yes, they did film in real New York for that stuff, for sure. And many of the sets ended up being built twice, because obviously you build it once larger for the actors playing elves, so it looks like everything around them is really big, and then smaller to make the normal sized actors like Ed Asner and Will Ferrell look, you know, like they're too big for the place. So there's a ton of that going on. And then they use sort of various like lighting tricks to sort of blend the images together and stuff. It's very clever. So we talked about how Macy's was used for the exterior, but it was also used for the interior scenes. The interior of the shopping center is actually the real inside of Macy's. Now, it's really funny that they do this as Gimbals. Gimbals was defunct at this point, but it's a real store that used to exist and was actually Macy's biggest competitor. They had a flagship store just a few blocks south of Macy's, but they closed in '86. The site is now
so a fair while before this. Then
yes.
I was thinking, yeah, but maybe they closed like a year before or whatever, like long enough ago for it to be known.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Gimbals closed down in, like, 86. This movie shoots in 2002 during winter. And, like, the Macy's guys, like, that had been their big competitor. So Macy's was just, like... I'm impressed Macy's were happy to let them film in there as if their Macy's is a Gimbals. It's really cool, but apparently they couldn't physically put up Gimbals stuff. So they couldn't have that logo anywhere or anything like that. So that all had to be CGI'd in. It's one of the few places in the movie they used copious CGI, is the interior of the department store.
Wow.
No. So there was also some issues around the scene where Buddy fights Santa. Macy's were concerned about the scene. They didn't like the idea of being associated with an imposter Santa Claus, basically. So instead, they built that Santaland set elsewhere. So yeah, Favre said we had to think long and hard about it. We ended up filming it in the cafeteria of a mental hospital in Vancouver instead. The funny thing about that scene is they had to do it in one take, the fight between the fake Santa and not John Favreau and Will Ferrell, because that set was so meticulously built, they did not have the time or the money to rebuild it to destroy it a second time. So they did that in one take. Wow. Yeah. The skyline that Buddy builds in the fake, Metropolitan Gimbals actually has several Philadelphia skyscrapers, including one Liberty Place, because the screenwriter David Berenbaum is from Philadelphia. Yeah. And actually, the reason he chose Gimbals is their big department store in Philadelphia wasn't a Macy's, it was a Gimbals. So he associates Christmas more with Gimbals than he does with Macy's.
Which is potentially why that was used instead.
Yes, almost certainly. And also, like, Gimbals being defunct, they can't sue you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You can
also, I suppose, there is also nothing particularly to set this film in a particular time period either. It's not like,
that's a good point.
One of the biggest pieces of technologies is an Etch-a-Sketch. This movie could be set in the 80s. I'm sure there's cars. I'm sure there's, I'm sure there are things. But yeah,
yeah. If they are, they're small and like not a big deal. Like they at one point they do have a conversation on a mobile phone, but cell phones existed since the 80s. So yeah, this movie could be set in the 80s. You're 100% right. Let's see. Oh yeah, so as we mentioned, there was an abandoned mental hospital used for some of the stuff they couldn't film. in the real Macy's. It was the same hospital that New Line were using to shoot Freddy versus Jason around the same time, so they had a long lease on it or whatever. The crew described it as one of the creepiest buildings they ever worked in. Now, they got it for cheap to free because New Line already had it for Freddy vs. Jason, but it doesn't sound like it was very good for the well-being of the crew.
No, but I suppose, unfortunately, when it's a low budget, that, you know what I mean? That sort of stuff, unfortunately, tends to take a back seat.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this one. This is one of my favorites. So Will Ferrell, at the movie's premiere, talked about... Sorry, he has, since the movie comes out, talked about how at the movie's premiere, James Caan approached him and said he thought his performance was too over the top.
What? Like, look, if that's true, right? Like, that's just one of those... What's to be gained by that? Like, right. It's the premiere. You can't change it. Yeah. Like, why say it?
Yeah.
Why say it?
Yeah,
like, there's no need.
I agree. However, when Khan did see the finish film, later and went through, some time passed, he did say later on that he understood what Farrell was doing to make the film work and praised him and said it was a good performance. But this was later on. Farrell has said in interviews, in a podcast actually, that James Caan barely had to act in this film because he was genuinely annoyed by Will Ferrell. Apparently, Caan outright told him he wasn't funny, and that he repeatedly told him he was over the top. And Farrell said, James Caan, may he rest in peace. We had a good time working on the movie, but he teased me constantly. When we would be in setups, he would be like, I don't get you. You're not funny. You're not funny. And I'd be like, I know I'm not Robin Williams. And he'd be like, people ask me, is he funny? And I'm like, no, he's not funny.
Oh, wow.
Now, Farrell would insist this is all with love and that it was like he was joking and teasing. But apparently that, Khan's bemusement with his on-screen demeanor just sort of enhanced the dynamic, basically. The grumpy father thing. Farrell said, I love that the whole time he's not acting. He's truly annoyed with me. Like, will this guy just shut the fuck up? I drove him so crazy in that movie, just acting like a kid.
Jeez.
Great. Now... There was a sequence cut from the first act where the elves were playing a hockey game, which obviously Buddy had a bit of an advantage in, being 3 times the size of his competitors. They got cut from the movie to keep the pacing up. I agree, actually, with this choice. I have seen that sequence. I think it's on a DVD extra, so I've not seen it in years, but I vaguely remember seeing this like a long time ago. But the movie moves at a clip, and its benefits being pacey. I don't know if you put in an extra sequence of him playing hockey in, if that's doing anything for anyone. I don't think.
Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah. The stuff at the end of the movie was originally going to be bigger based on the script. This is another thing that Jon Favreau changed when he came in. It was a CNN report, and there were dozens of cops surrounding Central Park because something had crashed into Central Park, and they weren't sure if it was a plane. And then the cops were chasing Buddy down Fifth Avenue and shooting at him. Insane. Apparently, he jumps off the Empire State Building onto a helicopter in the original script. Favreau was like, this is insane, so we're bringing this down. So he adjusted it to a more of a slice of life news story because he thought that was more realistic for the situation. The idea that something has crashed in Central Park, but they haven't sent out like the news crews and the police en masse. There's like a lady doing some people think Santa's in Central Park tonight story, which I think is actually a really smart way to do it.
Yeah, I thought that was handled really well. Yeah. And I really like that it still felt big, but it felt big to the people that were there. Because what I also liked about it is it gives them the ability to do that news report after that was like, we'll never really know what happened. Mm-hmm. I thought that was... Although... maybe you could argue, surely next year that he's going to be suffering with Christmas spirit then. But yeah, I thought it was great.
I agree. So Favreau sort of felt helicopters circling and cops swarming would have been a bit too much like the ending of Blues Brothers as well, which I also agree with. But I love Blues Brothers, but let's not copy it. I can't wait to cover that on here. Fucking love Blues Brothers. We won't talk about Blues Brothers 2000. I refuse to review that movie. I'm not doing it. Not doing it.
Oh, really? If I picked it, you'd outright refuse.
Well, if you picked it, I was like, see, this is the problem. So I said that in the full confidence that you'll never pick your Blues Brothers 2000, but I've realised in saying that I've put it on your radar.
No, bizarrely, I have seen it. Like that's one of those weird ones where I have seen both Blues Brothers movies.
I love Blues Brothers. The first one's amazing. 2000 is offensive to my sense of taste. I certainly wouldn't be choosing it, but I guess I would have to honour the rules. But when I said that, I was under the assumption that you were never in a million years going to choose Blues Brothers 2000 as a movie on this podcast.
I probably won't. To be fair, I probably won't. I thought of a known awful movie I've seen the other day that I would be more likely to pick. Than that.
Interesting. Well, a little tease for a future episode of this podcast. We are we're barreling through this trivia. We've got only a couple left, so let's carry these. So, without the police being involved on the same scale, Favreau was the one who came up with the idea of the Central Park Rangers. He kind of compared them to ring wraiths. He made the costumes similarly designed to Lord of the Rings. They were always shot in silhouette to hide their real appearance. So yeah, that was a deliberate choice instead. You know how I feel about that. We talked about that. In the break room and for the elves, they have a pitcher of syrup instead of a pitcher of coffee, which I guess on first viewing you wouldn't notice because you would assume it was coffee until you learn more about the elves. I think that's a good little detail. This is a funny one. The apartment in which Buddy's dad lives is the same building, the exterior shot, that Dana Barrett lives in Ghostbusters.
Oh, wow.
That's a fun detail. I like that a lot. Buddy's crayon drawing of himself that he gives to his father was drawn by the film's director, Jon Favreau. Now, here's another one.
They really did do a lot of guerrilla filmmaking in this, didn't they?
Yeah, it just feels like everyone just sort of was like chipping in and pitching in at random points. Yeah. This one baffles me slightly because I can't imagine how this comes about, but Buddy does a 12-second belch in this movie. Now, obviously, Will Ferrell, the actor, can't do a 12-second belch. So they went to a voice actor for this. Now, I'm sure you could have gotten pretty much anyone, but they ended up casting Maurice LaMarche as the belch. Famous, I think, most for voicing the Brain in Pinky and the Brain, but also in Animaniacs doing lots of stuff. He's a really famous and successful voice actor. I can't imagine how this came about. He goes uncredited for his belch. I guess I did read that he'd worked with Farrell a couple of years earlier, and maybe that was just a phone call, like can you help me out here, buddy? Can you do that and record it and send it in? But I love that Maurice LaMarche is responsible for that belch. That's really funny to me.
It's a shame he's not credited.
Yeah, but how do you do that? The belch, Maurice LaMarche. Like, I don't know. Is that enough to give him a credit? I guess I don't know.
Yeah, no, additional voice work provided by something like that.
There you go. Yeah, good. You nailed it. That's that. Yeah, you shut me up. That's how you do it. No, I'm kidding. No, I know you would. No, I know you would. I was joking. Okay. So Mary Steenburgen, who plays Emily, Buddy's stepmother in this, also plays Will Ferrell's mother in the movie Step Brothers, which comes out 4 or 5 years after this. So they kept working together.
I've never seen Step Brothers.
Really? Oh, that's definitely one for this then. That's a fun movie. I've not seen it in a long time. I'm not as convinced it'll hold up, but it was definitely a good movie in its day, for sure. I had a lot of love for it at the time. Now, here we get on to one of the parts of this that I'm not going to talk about as much as people would expect, because there is, unfortunately, there is very little information about this. And I don't want to speculate. So to resist speculation, I am simply going to report on things that we know as fact and let you have a think about that. So, Will Ferrell has expressed no interest in reprising this role. He doesn't want to do a sequel. He said it multiple times. In 2013, he said, absolutely not. I think it would look slightly pathetic if I tried to squeeze back in the elf tights. Buddy, the middle-aged elf. But, well, okay, I'll add this. He then proved he meant that because he was offered $29 million, the whole budget of the first movie, to reprise the role in 2014. Which he turned down. So, on the surface, he says, no, I think it would be a bit pathetic to be in the tights. And then they offer him a bunch of money and he still turns it down. You go, that makes sense. Until James Caan kind of throws Will Ferrell under the bus. When he appeared on Cleveland's 92.3, the Fans Bull and Fox show, James Caan said, "We were going to do a sequel. And I thought, my God, I finally have a franchise movie. I could make some money and send my kids to do whatever the hell they want to do. But the director and Will didn't get along so well. So Will wanted to do it, but he didn't want the director. And he had it in his contract. It was one of those things." Now, I'm not sure exactly what James Caan is implying about the contract element. He could be implying that contractually Jon Favreau was on the hook to do it, or Will Ferrell had it in his contract that he wouldn't work with Favreau, and that was a problem because the studio wanted to bring back Favreau. It's interesting. The rumours for years have been that they disagreed on the tone of the film. Farrell wanted a more cynical PG-13 comedy, and Favreau wanted a more family-friendly movie, and they clashed. There's word that Adam McKay came in to do uncredited rewrites. He's a long-time collaborator of Will Ferrell's. The feeling is that they did not work together very well, ultimately, because of this, despite the film being a huge hit, and that is the real issue. Now, credit to Will Ferrell. I think he's being very professional by being like, no, I wouldn't do a sequel because be a bit sad to get in the tights. He's not gonna I don't think it would be very professional of him to be like, yeah, I hated working with Jon Favreau. I wouldn't work with that piece of shit ever again. Like, if he said something like that, that's not great. So he is sort of lying, potentially, based on what James Caan has said, at least. But I don't know, man. I don't know. There's no confirmation of any of what actually happened on set. The things we know for sure is he said he wouldn't do it. He then turned down $29 million, and then James Caan in 2022, I think, shortly before he died, actually, maybe a year or two before he died, said, maybe it was 2021, so I can't remember exactly the dates. I don't have that written down for some reason, but he said the director and Will did not get along well. Will wanted to do it, but he didn't want the director, and he had it in his contract. It was one of those things.
It's really difficult, isn't it? Because obviously we don't know. There's a bit he said here. Mm-hmm. And also, this is one of those examples where you're like, well, whatever the reasons, the conclusion's right.
Yes,
I don't think a sequel should exist. I don't think a sequel would work.
I agree.
You're kind of a bit like, don't care why they're not doing it, as long as they don't do it.
Yeah. That's where I land. That's where I land on this. I don't want to see a sequel to this movie. It's a bit lightning in a bottle. There's so much that works about this movie. It's such a wonderful film. Please don't. This is a zero sums game. There is nothing to gain from doing another one.
Yeah, because also who knows what's true there? Because there's also reports of James Caan turning round to Will Ferrell on the red carpet of the premiere and saying he thought he was too big of the movie. So I'm not saying he's lying, but do you know what I mean? There's if someone says something in passing and it might not be true, but he believes it to be true, so he talks about it on the radio about a man he wasn't particularly fond of. I don't know. Who knows?
Yep.
Who knows what is true and what is not there?
No,
what I think is undeniably true is that I imagine the studio repeatedly, even now with James Caan's passing, I imagine they're still making offers to Will Ferrell to make an elf sequel. That has to be true.
I like the idea that every year they send him the offer, because 29 million is such a specific number, right? I like the idea that in 2015 it's 30 million, in 2016 it's 31. Just every year they're trying to find his breaking point.
Yeah, they will be. They absolutely will be. Honestly, I reckon every year there's just isn't there? I discovered this the other day. There's Heat 2 is happening, people. Heat 2 is a movie that exists.
It's already been made?
I think so. Yeah. Whatever. Point being, the studio's making offers for Elf.
Oh, I see. So, interesting. So a sequel book, crime novel has been written, and they're now looking at doing that as a movie. Interesting.
For Heat 2.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, I didn't know about that.
But you know what I mean? Like, there's just, of course, they're constantly. I imagine it's got to be. It's got to be the BBC and Gavin and Stacey, isn't it? Like, do you know what I mean? You've got to imagine just every year or two, there's a check-in. There's a, you sure? You don't? You want to do more? Like, there just has to be. Like,
yeah, for sure. Either way, as you said, the result is correct. Let's not do it. Let's not.
Yes.
So Favreau has noted that even though New Line, weren't necessarily like very enthused by the movie, following Old School releasing in February of 2023 and doing quite well. So Old School shoots in like January, February of 2022 and comes out 1 year later. Elf shoots December of 2022 and Old School releases a month or so later. So the movie is in editing, essentially. Old School comes out and is a reasonable hit. So Favreau has complimented New Line for the marketing for Elf, because he believes that because Farrell showed some signs of being a bit of a box office... how much did Old School make? I actually don't know that. I'm going to quickly look that up while I'm talking. Because Old School did okay, it gave New Line confidence to put more money into the promotion for Elf. And I feel like he's not... Oh, yeah, wow. On a 24 million budget, Old School turned 90 million. That's not bad for a comedy, is it?
Wow. No, not at all.
Wow. Okay. So Will Ferrell, obviously, showing himself to have a little bit of juice. The studio wisely, I think, pumped a bit more money into the marketing for Elf. Now, do you want to know how much Elf made?
Hit me.
So, budget was 30 million. We already talked about it. There's rumors of it being up to 33 million. Maybe. I don't know. 3 million. I don't care.
I reckon 140 million.
It's a solid guess, and probably I would have probably been in a similar bracket. The answer is 230 million.
Wow. Fair play.
It's good, isn't it? It's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
It's a good return, I would say. Tidy profit. And then obviously just years of... Because the thing with a Christmas movie, if you have a hit with a Christmas movie, you've not just made money in December of 2023. You've made money in December every year until the fucking earth explodes. That movie will continue to be, screened on television, put on streaming services, sold on DVD for the rest of time at Christmas, and will make money.
As such, that just further highlights why they're right not to make a sequel, because it means it's going to come up and be talked about over and over again as well. And how often do you hear this? Yeah, Home Alone. Oh, God, the sequels are awful. I mean, 3's not that bad. Or, oh, yeah, the Santa Claus 2 and 3. Whew. Yeah. Like, it happens. Like, whereas you don't hear that about Die Hard. Another great example.
Yeah.
You don't hear that about Elf.
It's true, but I was going to say, it hasn't really dampened their viewing, though. People still love to watch Home Alone and Die Hard, regardless of the shitty sequels existing. It hasn't really stopped people from enjoying the originals every Christmas, has it? So...
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I think that's the sort of thing all the nerds like us give a shit about.
What's mad with Home Alone is it's got like every kind of terrible sequel.
Yeah, it really has.
It's got a bad cinema release sequel. It's got a bad TV movie sequel. It's got a bad recent reboot, awful streaming service sequel. Like,
yeah, it's even got the sort of semi reboot sequel that wasn't too far removed from the original, but they had to use a new cast, and audiences kind of rejected it on the grounds that it was a new cast, even though the movie itself wasn't terrible. They've even got that kind of sequel.
Yeah. I'm as we've said before, and I will say again, I'm still a big defender of Home Alone 3. Yeah. I think it's a good movie.
I fear the year we have to watch it on here, because I suspect it may not be as good as Child Dan remembers.
No, most likely not. Did you ever watch Home Sweet Home Alone?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't end up seeing it.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah,
that's bad. Anyway,
it's a shame because like on paper, the cast, the
Yeah,
premise seemed like it was
Yeah.
going to work. All right, interesting little tidbit. To really put a little button on this movie continues to just make money forevermore. They gave it a whole countrywide release in the UK in December 2023 to mark its 20th anniversary. It's 2 decades old and it sat in the box office top 10 for multiple weeks. I mean,
yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
silly. It's time for everyone's favourite segment, Chris. It's Cars Exist.
Meow.
That's a good one. So, just a very quick one because I just find this funny. The car that runs him over during the Gimbel's establishing shot, which is a taxi, is the 1992 Ford Crown Victoria. It then reappears later in the movie, but he's ready for it, and it doesn't quite hit him the second time. Which is a funny little callback joke. So yeah, there you go. There's no other car in the movie that's particularly prominent or worth it or of note. But there you go. Cars exist, everyone. Now we've sort of talked because we already kind of know what's coming next week. We hinted at it already when we talked about the religious connotations of this movie. But just to confirm for the good people, Chris, what are we doing next week?
Yes, so as everyone knows, and as we've been honest about, we know where we're going for the rest of the season. That's why we're not doing any false, surprise stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But as everyone knows, my side of things this year has had a slight theme of it never being me that picks the movies. And to be fair, I sort of have picked this one, but I've deliberately picked Jess's favourite Christmas movie. So it's kind of not me picking. Not overly sure how she feels about watching her favourite Christmas movie in October, but we'll see. But we are going for Miracle on 34th Street, the more recent Richard Harris, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Version of that movie. Richard Attenborough?
Richard
Harris. It was Richard Harris. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Is it? Hold on.
I think it's. It might be Attenborough. You know.
I think
Richard Attenborough. It is
it's
Attenborough.
Yeah, the Richard Attenborough version, so not the original.
Yeah,
but
with
the
the version I know as the as a kid I knew as the Matilda version, but as an adult I know as the Mara Wilson version, little Mara Wilson.
Yes, yeah. But it's weird, isn't it? Because that movie in itself is so old now, it doesn't feel right saying the remake because you'd assume there was a further one. But yeah, it's technically, I suppose, the remake of Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah. When was the original made? The original was like 60s?
I don't know. I think the original might have been black and white, mightn't it?
Yeah, the original is black and white. I just don't remember exactly when it was made. 40s. 1947. Wow.
Wow, blimey.
Took them a while to remake that one, didn't it?
Yeah.
That's actually a lie because it looks like there's another version in between. Oh my god, there's 2 other versions in between. There's a 1973 version and a 1959 version. They just keep remaking Miracle on 34th Street. Yeah. According to IMDb, there is. I've not had a proper look on one of these could be like a TV movie or something. I don't know, but I've got Miracle on 34th Street, 1947, which seems to be the original. I've got 1959 starring Ed Wynn, Miracle on 34th Street, and then I've got 73 Miracle on 34th Street, and then I've got 1994 Richard Attenborough and Elizabeth Perkins. Elizabeth Perkins in this movie? I've forgotten that. Love Elizabeth Perkins. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where we're going, and we should talk about experience, etc., with the film then.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh man. I've just looked at the cast. There's a couple of good names in here.
Yeah, I'm excited. Well, I am. I think I'm excited to watch it with a critical eye. I mean, it's literally we watch it every year, so yeah.
Yeah. So you've seen it quite recently. Right. I've not seen it in a very long time. Not for a very long time. So I have no idea. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it'll be good. But anyway, thanks everyone for listening. We're big fans of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what you need to do, email us, mail@nothingbutstatic, with your socials and where we can support what you do, and we'll do that for a change. How about that?
Yeah, just to clarify, we're not going to give you any money on Patreon, obviously.
Well, yeah, because as we say, Chris, at the end of every, you don't have to. We have a Patreon. You can use it if you want to. You can send me all your details. I don't want to give you any money.
So yeah,
Merry Christmas.
It's Merry Christmas. It still won't be Christmas, will it? It'll be
23rd.
Christmas. Yeah, 23rd. So we will say it again. But yeah, Merry Christmas for now, and we will see you in a week's time.
Yeah, I hope that awkward bit of Christmas where it's like not quite Christmas, but you're also checked out of work almost entirely. Is good for everyone. You know, that's a weird week or two, that, isn't it? That like Christmas is close enough that you've stopped giving a shit about anything. Like it's really interesting because I'm in Korea now and they just had a holiday here called Chuseok, which is a big holiday for them. And I felt that. I felt people giving less of a shit in the week leading up to the week that the holiday was in, and it was really interesting. Just people just checking out of their jobs.
I don't know if it's a British thing, but just real memories in school of teachers just not giving a fuck. Like, just watching movies, just who cares?
Well, you know what I've realised now? I'm looking back on that and I'm thinking about that. And I'm thinking it's because we were probably unteachable. We're so excited. We're so distracted. Attempting to teach us would have been basically suicide the week before Christmas, I think. I think that would have just been a really stupid thing to do. I think the kids would have rioted, which is why the last week of school before Christmas was always a bit wishy-washy. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Yeah, you can genuinely get us in a few places, but you know, it's whatever. It's like we're on Patreon and YouTube and Google Nothing But Static. You'll find us. You can support us in a number of different ways. Mostly though, just keep listening. We appreciate that very much. There is a Patreon. It gives you episodes of this a week early. So if you do want to hear Miracle on 34th Street right now, you can go for as little as $1 a month. That gets you access to that a week early. But otherwise, we'll see you in a week's time for that. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm going to hand over to Chris, who ends this thing.
My name's Chris Billingham.
My name's Dan Doolan.
And this review has been rewound.